That's weird. I got 2 circles. What the hell does that mean? Okay, well, I guess YouTube likes me now. That was weird. Anyway, thanks, guys. Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Smudcast. Here we have the crew of Shiney, myself, and the ever-present LIteratureDevil whenever he decides to grace us or not grace us and then come back and grace us. He's always, we're not sure about him, but he's always here.
I'll pop in and out.
We appreciate it either way. So, we're going to take a look at a video titled Julz Chan's Movie Corner. I guess he has to preface it with his own name and what exactly the show is.
I think someone actually recommended his channel when a couple of streams passed. One of the Smudcast passed. And so I checked it out for my morning show, which I just started. I thought it was going to be fairly easy, but I ended up covering it for an hour by myself. I only got through 9 minutes of the video.
Wow.
It's every single word. It's like you have to stop it. Almost every half sentence, you have to stop it and explain why what he just said was really, really wrong.
Oh no, and it's 25 minutes.
It's 25 minutes. I only got through 9 minutes, and I covered it for about an hour 15, something like that. Maybe about 45
I'm glad
minutes.
I wasn't available for that morning show. I'm glad I was in the middle of college.
It's ridiculous, but it's fun, and I think you'll have a good time.
Okay, well that's good because I haven't watched this. I don't know anything about it, but there's plenty, and I mean plenty of stuff to talk about in the Mary Sue definition. There's a giant series of pages on tvtropes.org. If you don't know the definition of a Mary Sue, I guess we can give it right now.
Julz Chan brings it up too. He brings it up.
Oh, he does?
Yeah,
Okay.
to help. Because his whole argument is that the term Mary Sue is useless and worthless and has no place in any serious critique of anything. Calling that someone's character Mary Sue is absolutely meaningless because there's so many definitions to the word Mary Sue, so many different interpretations. So you shouldn't use it. Also, he's one of those guys that tells you that every time you see an independent, strong female character, all of a sudden, Mary Sue. That's what he thinks we think. So that's one of those people.
Sounds like he's appropriated the term and
right,
redefining it. Like these people love to do. It's like, well, this is really what a romantic story is. It's like, no, that's called a space opera. There's a very big difference between two people falling in love and a bunch of lasers in space. It's kind of different. So yeah, this is probably one of those videos where some person stood on his high horse.
It
and I hope,
kind of sounds familiar.
And I hope you know the story of the Green Ranger because that's one of the biggest examples he pulls up to prove to us that Mary Sue's are useless or whatever is the Green Ranger because we love him and he's apparently Mary Sue.
Okay, that's
just the comment of what he's going for reminds me a little bit of. I'm trying to remember who played Daisy Ridley. Daisy Ridley came out and said that anyone who calls Ray a Mary Sue is just being sexist or something along those lines.
Yeah,
she said that she doesn't. Yeah, like saying all she wants to do is help people, and all this is like, yes, that's the problem. She's got no flaws. She's only just good all the time. It's unrealistic to how people actually are. People aren't walking perfections.
Oh, remember as Vosh's defense of the Mary Sue? It's basically Vosh's video again, but a little bit more of a smug voice.
Is that even possible?
Apparently so.
I mean, we're talking about Vosh there. Holy, okay. Well,
so it's like Vosh's arguments, but in a different video.
Okay,
and regurgitated by a different person.
This is literally by Julz Chan. He calls it the Julz Chan Movie Corner. The super mighty Captain Force Mary Sue. Let's go and get going.
Oliver show featuring the Power Rangers.
Wow.
It's not the character's fault
Which
or
is-
even any idea of this term and think it's productive to
I think we're
use it.
in the middle of 10 minutes.
There we go.
There we go. There's the beginning.
All these movies.
Why does it feel like he's got some really just for intro? He's gotten some random graphic he's found online for free, and then just stuck some random things to it in After Effects. Like it takes 5 minutes.
He likes his multiple media all in one to show he's seen all these movies. He's just like an expert at them all.
I think we're ready because
Just cast
I'm pretty
into
sure
the
we've
hall.
seen movies too, so we should be good.
All right, that's a good point. Yeah, we see movies. We know what we're talking about. Yeah, we're good.
For those wondering, yes, this video took a long time to produce, and I'm so sorry. The main reason this video was delayed was because this was a bit of a difficult subject to tackle. Not because it was a difficult subject for me to understand as a
We gotta respect that six-pack. That is just...
My eyes were very much drawn to it, like, why the fuck is he so ripped?
Wow.
He's wearing that shirt specifically so he can show it off.
We have a super chat here. Let's see.
Yeah, Mad Courier, thank you, sir. That's always... I mean, I don't... Your mind is ready, but my eyes are not. Like, look at this guy. He's got a fedora
think your mind is ready.
with goggles
your
on it. And he's got a midriff halter top for men. What? Like, what is going?
I think
he's also a weeb.
He looks like he usually covers anime. I didn't see the rest of his videos. I just perused his stock of videos. Is the one that caught my eye that I can kind of grasp or whatever. But I think he covers mostly anime. That's what it seems like on first glance, anyway.
Yeah, I would assume some sort of animation, just because he's so into his avatar. Like, who would make an avatar like that? Like, we had the previous fellow or gentleman or lady who sounded like a man but looked like a really creepy girl. Now we've got fedora. Like, are you exploring something or on safari? Like, what's going on here?
Okay, so let's just look at our avatars. We have Commander Shepard, we have the Devil, and in a suit, and we have a clone trooper, and then as an extension, we have Evan, who I don't know who all that's supposed to be, and then we've got Southpaw, who I'm assuming he's just himself.
Oh, he's a big puppy. Okay.
Content creator, oh no. I know the term Mary Sue is a useless buzzword that doesn't help creators, critics, or fans. No.
Yes, it does if you actually bother to research the term, okay? People use it without defining it for whatever purpose. That doesn't really clarify the term because it is a nebulous term, I'll give it that. But it exists. It has existed for a while.
Okay, so LIteratureDevil, if someone accused one of your comic book characters of being a Gary Stu, would that be not good enough for you to act upon, like of a criticism?
I mean, people tend to misuse the term sometimes. But if someone were to say, "Hey, I read your comic book or whatever, and this character seems like a Mary Sue or Gary Stu to me," I would say, "Okay, I'll take a look at it, see if ask them for what reason they think that it's a Gary Stu, and I'll take those reasons in mind, and just go through with it and see if they're correct or not." And I think his argument here is that you shouldn't call anyone's character Mary Sue because it's too triggering, and you can't take that.
But he says it doesn't help. But if we just went through, it does. If someone accuses your character of being X, and you realize that, oh shit, they're right, then you can try to do something to change that.
Absolutely. And critique is very important if you're trying to produce something creative, like a creative story especially. And critique, and Mary Sue, the term, is very important to writing. It's very important to critique because he goes over the origins of Mary Sue. He doesn't go over all of the context, but that it's very important. It's almost like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, where Joseph Campbell created this hero's journey as a kind of a formula for how stories are constructed, how we like our stories to look for the most part, and it spans cultures and eras and all that stuff. The Mary Sue, the original Mary Sue fan fiction, is sort of like the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, except kind of the opposite. It's kind of where the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey is how to do something. The original Mary Sue story is more along the lines of how not to do something, how not to produce characters.
The actual reason it was written was because she was reading so much of this crap, and she just kept seeing the same crap over and over. And she's like, all right, I'm going to make my own crap, and this is what it is. And voila, the Mary Sue was born.
She basically just made fun of it. And she put all the tropes she saw from all of these different Mary Sue-type characters together into one convenient package. And it became like the blueprint of what Mary Sue pretty much may look like. And just like the hero's journey, Mary Sue doesn't have to have all the traits that she expresses. It can only have some of them. It can have all of them. It can have more than what she put on. Just like with the hero's journey, you don't have to use the entire hero's journey, but it's there. It's kind of like a standard you can look at to compare to whether or not your character is or is not a Mary Sue, or is portraying some Mary Sue-ish type traits and red
let's
flags.
Be clear, in order to to get to that goal, you don't necessarily need the guide, but when you don't know how to write, when you are doing fan fiction, when you want to overpower your character to be awesome and special and have all these amazing qualities that everyone loves, and you're just the best, you're the greatest, it's going to be this crazy power fantasy. That is the mentality of the writer for writing a Mary Sue, whether they are aware of it or not. So it always comes from a place of, I would not say innocence, but just ignorance. They're just not sure what they're doing, and they want things to be awesome.
I found this difficult because the term, like all buzzwords, is so nebulous, therefore difficult to explain to normal people as to why this piece of fanfic slang needs to die a grisly death. And
I took umbrage with that too. I'm pretty sure people kind of grasped what he called normal people kind of grasped what a Mary Sue type character is just from reading Paula Smith's masterful parody. Because I'm pretty sure anyone who read the parody can kind of grasp what she was talking about. That's pretty much why it became so famous.
Yeah, it's
to me,
I just had a quick look at the comment section for the video, and there's only about 2 comments, but I don't know how, like, if they've been deleting comments because there's just not enough.
I don't know for sure, but pretty sure he has. It just comes off to me as someone who curates the comment section.
But I could read you off one of his responses if you want.
Okay, what was the question?
Sorry, I've my mic button for some reason keeps taking me back a page. I have to go back. Okay, so something he says at 12:23. He says, "Never do." Someone says, "Never do that. The idiots that believe Ray is a Mary Sue (quotation brackets she's not) will only attempt to hostage takeover, and therefore resist even more." And then he says, Jules Chan replies, "I can hardly see how that's my problem if the idiots who think Ray is a Mary Sue take issue with that very obvious on-point comparison. If they want to remain stubborn, then there isn't anything that anyone can do about it."
Ray's a Mary Sue. It's true. Just deal with it. Just absorb it into your consciousness. It's true. It's like it's a fact of life.
It sounds like the definition is so hard for him to grasp, he just forgets about it. He's like, yeah, it doesn't exist. Therefore,
yeah, and then there's another comment.
Because
basically just
a character I like, because the character I like is a Mary Sue, I'm just going to choose to pretend Mary Sues don't exist.
And the other comment is just basically saying the term Mary Sue is too broad and unspecialized. We need something more than a category of tropes. I'd much rather TV tropes that specialized versions of the Mary Sue God Stew story that's too uninteresting because it lacks stake.
What? So we have all these definitions of what an actual Mary Sue is. No, it's too broad. It's too general. It's like, what? No, they're not. They're specific. There's like
all these different flavors of Mary Sue. They are different kinds and types, but they're all essentially the same. They're all they all warp the world around them. They all break the rules of the established universe. They just do it in different ways. Like you have the God Mode Sue, which just does everything. You have Sun Sue, which is a Mary Sue that is just godly in their how they can predict things and form strategies, that they break the continuity of the world because they're basically omnipotent in how well they plan. You have the copycat Sue, which is basically just your own insert Mary Sue. It just copies one of your favorite main characters of the series, but probably better. And you have the possession Sue, which is just you read a fan fiction, and you take over one of the already established main characters, but you turn them into what you want them to be, and they get favoritism. They become a Mary Sue, stuff like that. So they're all essentially the same thing. They're just different flavors of that one thing, like different faces. There's Mary Sue with 1,000 faces. That's what pretty much it is.
All right, let's keep going.
Has no place in critical analysis. A lot of novice.
You see that? No, has no place for critical
place.
analysis. We had 49 seconds. You see what I mean? We haven't even spanned a minute. We paused it 100 times.
If we want to say there's no place for critical analysis, you have to have a term which cannot be analyzed, essentially.
Right.
It's like you can't use your brain, therefore it has no place. What would be something that's cannot use critical analysis? Like, what would be one thing? I'm trying to think of something we can't critically analyze. Like, if you like something,
Patrick Willems, he's just kind
talking about. You're basically talking about terms that we use that are generally used around critique, used in critique, that have no substance. So, like, is there a term that people use that isn't actually useful in critical analysis?
it's just a strange thing to say. It's like, this has no place to be taken seriously or even looked at, or, it's like, hey, MacGuffins, that's not really a thing. No one really cares about them. They get thrown away at the next scene. So why would you think about them? It's like, dude, it's a part of literature. It's pretty commonplace nowadays that people start talking about it because of the popularity of it. So yeah, you should probably talk about why things don't work, and that strange thought and feeling at the back of your head going, hey guy, you're smarter than this. And he just sort of disregards that message and decides to say, no, it's all nothing. And there's no problem. It's good. It's good.
Writers and critics trip up on this term and think it's productive to use it in analysis to explain the failings of a story or character. But unlike...
You know why people think it's productive to use in critical analysis? Because it is. Even if you don't know, even if you believe there's no precise, rock-solid definition for Mary Sue, most people know what it is. And most people recognize that, have some idea of what they're going to talk about, what they might have in mind as to what's wrong with the character they've read, even if it's your character, someone else's character. So that starts a conversation. But basically, it's kind of shorthand. This character's Mary Sue. Or how so? Are they too powerful to something? And then you can explain your reasons as to why. But yeah, it has a lot of substance, and people do, even if they have no solid definition of a Mary Sue, even if they themselves have no solid definition of Mary Sue, using the term Mary Sue would be able to give the person some idea of what the critic thinks is wrong with the character.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
A lot of novice writers and critics, I actually put effort into thinking about this, which also solves a lot of problems concerning characters people erroneously call Mary Sues.
Oh wow, I'm the smuggest prick in the room, therefore I'm right? What?
I think I can do that. It's pretty easy.
I'm so smart. Of course everything I say is correct. Like, what? What kind of argument is
You got to
that?
be pretty.
Is that all it takes to be right? Is be more smug than the other guy?
It's kind of like the type of people who like laugh at you, like when you're trying to make an argument, like that somehow manages to defeat your argument.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
they just
because
kind of smugly laugh.
people are laughing, therefore you're wrong. It's like, what?
I like how this picture he put, because he really believes this according to his future arguments. When you say Mary Sue, people derisively imagine a woman who can do everything, is loved by everyone, and has no flaws. I won't go into this now, but because he'll bring this up later. But that's not true. Okay, Mary Sues do tend to be female characters, not all the time. They just happen to be. But just because a female character is loved and can do a lot of good things and cool things, doesn't mean she's a Mary Sue. I'm pretty sure people don't think of that. I'm pretty sure most people think about a character that is too powerful or something like that, rather than just a female character.
One of the main problems we have with Rey is that we don't know where her power comes from. Compare that to another character like young Anakin in Episode 1, who pretty much he's a Mary Sue, except we know where his powers come from. And the problem with that is the definition is a bad definition, because it's an actual retcon to the lore of Star Wars. So we're thinking there, oh, okay, well, he has a lot of these, he's on the scale, as we like to say, of Mary Sue-ness. And you go, okay, yeah, he can do this. Not everyone likes him, though, but he has amazing piloting skills. He can rebuild C-3PO.
Yeah, but he also fails. Well, not in the first movie as much, but in the second movie, he gets his arm chopped.
He's not. Yeah, but we're talking about the first movie. So he's on the scale, but there's enough there for us to go, okay, obviously we know the writer's just trying to get him through the movie, and of course the audience knows he's not going to die because he has 2 more movies to go through with his character.
Yeah, we've already seen that he becomes Darth Vader. So
yeah.
Obviously, he's not going to die. He has plot armor, but plot armor does not make one of Mary Sue.
Exactly. There's plot armor. So there's other elements working in play, which is very similar to the Mary Sue, but not exactly right. That's why it's That's why it's so unique to see it operate the way it did for 3 movies in the sequel trilogy. So, very similar.
Well, just to correct what you were saying earlier, we do actually know where Ray's power comes from now. The only problem is it still makes no fucking sense.
Well, yeah, it gets defined well after the fact, but it changes nothing. It still doesn't answer the question.
It still doesn't answer the question
They
because
believe it fixes the question.
she just
because
related to Palpatine.
They think that her being related to Palpatine just automatically means she's the most powerful thing on Earth.
Yeah,
It doesn't,
If we
because,
had
I mean,
like
we had a precedent.
let's say she has the same definition as young Anakin, and what was young Anakin, like 20,000, 30,000 midichlorians or whatever, and Rey was like 40,000 or whatever. Like, oh, okay, that's pretty amazing, but it's still just potential. It's still just a way of saying, well, you have this potential to be powerful.
Yeah, because if midichlorian count is all it took, then I mean, young Anakin could already beat Yoda. I'll just make him the next leader of the,
Right.
the Jedi Council already.
So in
Just
order,
saying metachlorine count is not really. No one really knows what it is exactly because like everyone's got their own theories about it. The best theory people come up with if it's potential, but there's even things to contradict that within certain areas of canon and legends of how it's being described. So we really we don't fucking know anything.
I also like to point out that the letters or sentence on the left to op is bad grammar. It's just that they're trying to make a straw man out of people who are calling Mary Sue's what they are, a bad
Yeah,
thing.
and just going back to the picture as well, it's like people who imagine a Mary Sue being a woman who can do everything, is loved by everyone, has no flaws. I think what they're trying to refer to is that they're loved by everyone, but yet everyone hates her. There's a difference between people in a story liking someone and people outside of the story liking someone. Like for inside the story of Joker, no one likes him, or at least very few people like him. But outside of the story, a lot more people like him, and they're two different things.
Now, what exactly is a Mary Sue? Well, I wish I had a straightforward answer for you, but there's not really one. Some might say, oh, they're super beautiful, they're...
Oh god, I haven't heard this tune in ages. It's from it's been used in a game that was something I can't remember his name now. Jim Sterling. You had like this big row with this small game. One person made it or something, and it had this one tune that played over and over and over again. And I just remembered that it's this tune. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Okay. Well, that's a good hint because apparently he's a fan of Jim Sterling because he uses a Jim Sterling bit in a little bit because he brings up this French aristocrat thing. And I was like, where does this come from? And people said, oh, it's a Jim Sterling bit where he reads
It's not a very good one.
arrogant comments or whatever,
might
and
jump ship.
but he uses it. so you mentioned that tune that Jim Sterling used. Okay, that's a good indicator.
Well, it's not a song that Jim Sterling uses. It's just a song that's used in the game that he heavily criticized and had this big row with the developer that ended up leading to a lawsuit, which Jim won.
good at everything, they don't have flaws, they don't have character development, they're super perfect at everything, guys. Ugh. And
Superman's not perfect. He's just strong. That's not a Gary Stu.
And everything he listed were just red flags until he got to this one point. This is the one solid feature you can find in, I think, every Mary Sue, is that they warp story and character around them. So the characters will be out of character around them just to suit the desires of the Mary Sue. Same thing with the plot. They'll just bend around them. The rules of the world will break or bend so that the Mary Sue can look even better. And that's why we call Ray 1.
Just going back to the accusation that Superman's a Mary Sue, he's been defeated by Batman multiple times. He's got his ass kicked by Brainiac, Zod, Doom. Not is it Doomsday? I can't remember. I think it is.
Doomsday killed him.
Yeah,
they
and
killed him
in certain things. And try to remember who else. Darkseid has also beaten Superman's ass before.
Oh yeah.
So
Darkseid
yeah, the world.
really
the
powerful.
rules of the world do not bend around Superman whatsoever. He's just a strong character.
they warp characters and the world around them to the detriment of the story.
Again, bringing up Superman the animated series, the world does not bend around him, I should say.
Yeah, I don't know why he's showing a picture of the world actually bending around Mixelpidalic, because that's literally a guy who's like a god level character. So I guess because Superman can't handle him, well, it says he's clever enough to trick him, but that's about it. That happens much later in the story. So it's like, yeah, he's not as strong as this god character. It's like, what? What doesn't that mean
That's
he's
like
not a
saying-
Mary Sue?
That's like saying Batman's a Gary Stu because of Batmite.
Or whatever, like shark repellent, and he has all these gadgets that do everything for him.
That's a bit more convenient.
Yeah, it's still technology, but yeah, it's still ridiculous when you hear it. You're like, okay, come on.
Shark repellent.
However, that's not the only definition you'll come across whenever someone tries to explain what a Mary Sue is.
I'm okay. Let there be multiple definitions, and then we can clarify what you're asking for or what you're defining. Or that's totally fine. Let's find out, sir. Okay. Having more than one
There's also
definition doesn't make
multiple-
it a bad term.
There's also multiple definitions for lots of things. Because, like, lots of words, like, you can go to Google or you can go to different dictionaries, or different official dictionaries, and they'll describe a word or a phrase completely differently. They'll have different descriptions for them, explain them in different ways. So that's a different definition.
Character is too powerful or has too many powers is like totally OP, Mary Sue.
Okay, he just said that before. So what is he arguing?
And LIteratureDevil just died.
That's life. He'll come back.
There goes our comic book expert.
Character? Ugh, how arrogant. No self-respecting writer would ever do that. Totally a Mary Sue. It's just a power fantasy for them.
Well, yeah, in certain respects, or at the lowest common denominator, it is just a power fantasy to the writer. So, yeah, that's not incorrect.
It's
Or
so
a self-insert fantasy.
exactly.
In terms of, especially when it, maybe not as much now, but back when it was officially being, when the parody of Mary Sue came out and some of the original fan fictions came out, they were all insert characters for the author themselves. So, and that's where the original term comes from. But now it's kind of changed and developed because we have characters like Rey, which the world bends around them. Same with Captain Marvel to an extent, as the world has to bend around her too.
self-indulgent. A super special race? Mary Sue, cried the lore nerds. Are they the
No. There's plenty of characters, especially in role-playing games, that they're the last of their race, and you have to bring them back, or you're investigating the death of their culture, or whatever. That happens a lot.
Javik.
Javik from Mass Effect. You have Aerith or Eris from Final Fantasy VII. Almost every JRPG has that trope, so pretty common. Nothing to do with being Mary Sue. I don't know where he got that.
the chosen one? Do they have plot armor? So cliche and predictable? Mary Sue.
Plot armor and chosen one are not really. That's the same thing as Mary Sue.
You may as well say
Usually if they're the-
protagonist. I mean, it's the same. Yeah.
Chosen one characters usually not really that associated with Mary Sue. As most Mary Sues are powerful without any kind of explanation of why the world bends around them. And Chosen One is usually a lazy explanation, but it's still an explanation nonetheless.
Sue without putting any effort, loved and appreciated by everyone and is treated like a total badass in legend. Ugh, so unrealistic and unrelatable. How?
Because people are not perfect. That's why it's unrelatable.
Yeah,
Rey's
we
unrelatable
can go
because
through-
she doesn't face any kind.
We can go through the dozens and dozens of details that make Rey or other characters a Mary Sue. It doesn't change or alter the actual base definition or what the elements are. It just adds to it. It's like saying, well, this apple tree produces 20 apples. This one produces 20, therefore it's not a real apple tree. It's like, well, it still makes apples. There's just less of them. So it's...
Also, that's interesting. That place in the background actually looks a little bit familiar. It reminds me of a place that I went into in Austria. Just a random thing. Just random because it popped into my head. But yeah, the way he's trying to paint all this, just it's very strange. I think we did see like someone saying before, like just starting to turn to any kind of writing problem. And was it the last stream we watched someone who denied MacGuffins? It's like, oh, they're not a problem for me. You know, they're not a problem in the story.
That's right.
So slowly we're getting more and more people deny that story problems are in fact actually problems.
I don't like them, therefore they don't exist in my world. It's like, what? I'm sorry, that's not how this works. Okay.
How could I appreciate a character who's just good at everything and has everything line up for them? Oh, such a Mary Sue.
That's a legitimate criticism. I don't know what he's on about.
Paragon? Oh, what are you, Jesus? Mary Sue? The everyman? Oh, stop trying to appeal to everyone. Stop.
Okay, he's now mixing tropes. The everyman is definitely not a Mary Sue. I don't know where that came from. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, because they're literally any person, and that makes it so easy for them people to put their shoes into them. That makes them relatable, and that doesn't make them a bad character. And often, if it's done well, it can usually lead to some very great characters. If you have someone who's just, you know, who is just in their life every day, who's pretty much like anyone else, and then suddenly they're swept along an adventure, that's a lot of room for character development and a lot of storytelling.
Yeah, I think he's just throwing tropes in the air and laughing at them. I think that's about all we've got so
He's
far.
back.
Okay, apparently this time I just couldn't withstand how the ludicrousness of this video is destroyed my computer.
I thought you fixed your computer.
blame the video.
I always
of
think I
course.
fixed it, and then it just decides to mess up anyway.
Yes.
But I think this guy suffers from one big flaw in that he never realized that saying something in a mocking voice doesn't make it untrue. Because he says he said a character has everything fall in line with them and has everything turn out great for them, just without automatically just that they're perfect in every way. Oh, this is a Mary Sue. Well, yes, it is. Just because that's probably Mary Sue. Yeah, so you say in a mocking voice does not mean it isn't true.
I think
Just now he tried to say something along the lines of, "Oh, the everyman. Oh, such a Mary Sue."
Who says the everyman is a Mary Sue? Unless it's
This guy.
I never heard anyone ever argue that the everyman character is just instinctively a Mary Sue. It's inherently a Mary Sue. Never heard that one.
Trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Mary Sue. Power and skills that come out of nowhere? Ugh, so contrived.
Yeah, if they're not explained, then it is contrived. If you
Danny
just
Phantom gets his powers from. They explain how he got his powers. He didn't get them from nowhere.
if your protagonist is in danger and all of a sudden they come out with an ability to save their life, and that's out of nowhere and it's never explained, then that is a huge problem for your story. There is a huge hole in it.
that's a problem not just for the character, but the continuity, the reality, the lore, the setting, how this is even a thing, where it came from. Like, all these questions start popping up. So there are other problems with the Rise of Skywalker outside of Rey.
Just because I remember
Plenty.
another video going along the same lines of, oh, well, if you've got a problem with someone having, abilities out of nowhere, then what about Luke in Empire Strikes Back when he jumps out of a hole? And it's like, well, no, because he actually had some kind of force training for that at least, and he still got his ass kicked. Just before anyone comes up with that argument.
And actually, Luke is the everyman, so we can at least try and relate to his story more than.
And he brings up Luke Skywalker a lot as with someone we would consider a Mary Sue. How do we supposedly apply the same standards to Rey as we did to Luke Skywalker? He's one of those two. I mean, like I said before the stream started, his video is just basically all the arguments we've heard before, just repackaged and spoken in a different voice,
Sadly.
and with more French
Mary-
aristocrats.
Sue, is the main character a female? Is she a strong, independent woman in any way? Burn her!
There it is. There it is. I told you.
What is going
Oh,
on in this picture?
we are.
So there's never been a strong character, a female character in a story that we've absolutely loved. Ellen Ripley for one.
He's bringing back the old argument that they used to love to throw around, that the only reason why we call some characters Mary Sue is because they're a strong, independent woman. Of course, he would bring that up. I'm not sure if this person has their own thoughts or anything like that. These are just all arguments that everyone else has made, just different. They're the same arguments, just in a different video, just spoken by a different voice.
It's on a different YouTube channel, the same thing.
Yeah, different YouTube channel, same stuff, different YouTube channel.
It's so bizarre to me how this argument keeps coming up when the amount of times us and people like us have said, well, actually, we like characters like Ellen Ripley. Actually, we like characters like Ahsoka Tano. Actually, we like characters like Kreia. We like characters like this, that, or the other. And we bring up like millions of other characters. So why would we have a problem with this one character's gender when we don't have a problem with any of the other characters?
It's a strange. This is jumping around. He's just throwing things up in the air, really. So.
She's a witch and a Mary Sue. Feminism is the devil. Any character type someone does not like, or any badly written character ever, you bet we're just gonna call them a Mary Sue instead of putting in effort. Now, to normal, non-writing folk, these criticisms may sound correct, but as I've said before, just because it sounds correct.
There's your boy Zach from Comicsgate. He named his channel Diversity in Comics, which of course might signal to some people that he's a far leftist NPC person who just talks about diversity in comics because that was a channel name. He didn't. He was a demon that everyone tried to literally ruin. In the comic book industry launched a full-blown hate campaign against this guy to ruin his life. He was in several media outlets being talked about as a Nazi, and he was attacked by what's his name, Mark Zaid, the guy who the lawyer who represented the whistleblower for the Trump administration. He was attacked by every single professional in Marvel Comics. Tried to ruin his life. He was doxxed. He was harassed. His children were stalked online on their Xbox video games because he sat in his car and said why the comics were dumb, why they were bad, why they were badly written, why they were poor quality. They tried to ruin his life by bringing down the entire media on his head. He was even on Jim Jeffries. They brought him on Jim Jeffries. This is where this picture is from, Jim Jeffries. And Jim Jeffries, of course, he's totally dishonest and recut everything so he looks like a racist. But I think Julz Chen might be upset because he thought the channel Diversity in Comics would be about diversity and progressive values and all that stuff. It wasn't. He is reasonably minded, not insane. So he might have been disappointed by that factoid.
He's not as extreme as I am. I am the ultimate purveyor of knowledge and literature and understanding. Okay.
If only people who use Mary Sue just don't understand. They don't put any effort in to make any actual criticism, unlike me.
And yeah, I told you, there's always this prevailing presence of absolute arrogance in every single one of these videos we tend to cover.
Yeah, I know. People say that about myself as well, that, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's so full of himself. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a second opinion. It's like, well, I respond to comments that contradict me all the time. So. Oh,
yeah. I mean, there's a difference between that and, just putting forth confidence and having an air of superiority. Like, I'm taking the high ground and you all are just, you can take the low ground if you want, but I'm taking the high ground. I'm choosing to be better than all of you. Yeah. See, that's the difference between here's what I'm thinking and here's my argument presented in confidence, and then here's my argument presented as totally better than everyone else's argument.
I remember just watching one of Mauler's videos, and someone just said to me, "Oh, he just sounds so up his own ass. He sounds like he's trying to make himself better than everyone else." And it was just one of his, I think it was Last Jedi videos, where he basically just talks about it and it explains everything wrong with it. And all he was doing was explaining legitimate criticisms of the film and talking about why it's a problem. But I think it's maybe just the manner he was saying it, the confident, well-spoken and well-explained manner, it just sounded like it was up his own ass to some people, and that's some of the criticism that I guess a lot of us, I'll say you lot YouTubers, because I'm not a huge YouTuber and that's never been happened to me, have had the same criticism level towards you of that you, because of the way you're confident. But I think you do need to be confident in this.
Yeah,
or
you
at least
do.
sound confident.
It's a big factor, and what you need to be doing is you need to because it's your presentation, and I've heard this from many of college professors. If you're writing an essay, it's your essay. You don't have to second guess yourself. You are presenting things in your point of view. Be confident, and just take the stance that you are correct. And if the thing is, you're not saying that you are correct, you're just putting forth the argumentation as if you believe you are correct, which you should, and then you can take in critique. But there's a difference between, here's my argument, as what Mahler was doing, is here's all the things I see wrong with the movie, and here's all the things I see wrong with the movie, and if you don't agree with me, you're dumb. That's the way Mahler does it. Is here's all the critiques with the movie, and the way we've seen so many of the people who bring up who we've critiqued on this Smudcast, and all the people who come out and defend The Last Jedi. It's not all of them, of course, but there seems to be a particular pattern that they don't just critique things. They go, here's my critique, here's my argument, and if you don't agree with me, they have the added on benefit of, if you don't agree with me, you are a bigot or
Then
a
I don't want to
sexist
be
or
your
whatever.
friend.
Yeah, and they don't. Well, Patrick Willems, I don't want to be your friend if you disagree with me. That sort of thing. That's what I'm talking about. That's the specific flavor of arrogance I'm talking about. It's going past confidence and getting to arrogance where they think they're absolutely right beyond question. And if you are disagreeing with them, then you are absolutely wrong. Therefore, you're absolutely wrong, and therefore you are incorrect or ignorant, or you can't see things like I can see things, and I can't be friends with you. That sort of thing. That sort of mentality and attitude. But yeah, confidence is important. Just don't go overboard with it. Just don't go into we can't be friends because you disagree with me realm. And let's see. Someone mentioned something. Oh, Nathan Childless. Yeah. They tried to call a dude with 3 mixed race children a white supremacist. Yeah, this guy, Diversity in Comics, he has children by several different women. All of them are mixed, and I think he has a Muslim daughter that he even mentioned before, and he actually gave her a copy of that new Miss Marvel, the one where she's also Muslim, the Muslim Miss Marvel, and his Muslim daughter thought it was boring. She threw it away.
Well, that seems to me like he certainly has a type. But yeah, just going back to the confidence thing, if you talk, like, just to make a comparison, if you want to talk about the way he's talking and the way that you're talking, LIteratureDevil, because you're the most, I guess, confident spoken one here, there's a huge difference, because you're definitely not putting that point forward of, if you don't disagree with me, then you're X, Y, and Z. While this person is making these accusations where, if you don't agree with me, then you're not putting enough effort in, because if you say that this is a Mary Sue, then you're not putting the effort in. It's just because she's a woman. It's just because of this, that, and the other. And there's such a huge contrast between the way you're talking and the way he's talking.
Yeah, obviously, if you disagree with me, we can't be friends or something. I just don't understand that one. I mean, why would you want your circle of people, your circle of friends, being 100% filled with people who just agree with everything you say? I mean, that's perfect discourse.
One of my friends, I constantly have discussions with him all the time about Star Wars: The Last Jedi. With me criticizing it heavily, and him saying, "Oh, I love it; it's the best thing ever." And it's like, well, it'd be a lot more boring if we didn't have these discussions, because it's good to have debates and discussion and just have fun having something to talk about.
Absolutely. That's why I suggest no one curate their comment section. I mean, yeah, you're going to have some people just hate on you, but you're going to have people who see through weaknesses in your argument. People do that all the time with my videos. It's fantastic. It's fun. I get to learn new things too. I love it.
Okay, then.
Correct doesn't mean it is when you think about it. Now, on a surface level, a lot of these concerns do sound reasonable to worry about. However, like any other lazy shorthand, these concerns and the term itself is...
I love this. I love this diagram. It is just pretty much the straw man, the diagram.
This is horrible. This is absolutely stupid. This is the dumbest argument that Mary Sue is meaningless. It's like, what? Is it female? Yes. Does he use it? Does he use a sword to fight? Yes. Has.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like what? Like, that's not.
I like to point out we've been going for 44 minutes, and we're only 3 minutes into this video. We had to just pause it almost after every single sentence. I think I might do what I did on my stream, because he uses a mocking voice. So I think it's fair enough that we use a mocking voice to read his stuff, right? So
Go ahead.
How to tell if your character is a Mary Sue? Is the character female? If yes, then she's a Mary Sue. If no, then does she use a sword to fight? If yes, then she's a Mary Sue. If no, then has she ever won a fight? Well, if yes, if your female character has ever won a fight, then of course she's undoubtedly a Mary Sue. But if no, is she human? Then if the answer is no, then of course she's a Mary Sue. But if the answer, however, is yes, then is she level 1?
What?
If she's not level 1, then of course she's a Mary Sue. However, if she is level 1, is she a Mary Sue? If she's a Mary Sue, yes, then she's a Mary Sue. Is she a Mary Sue? No. Yes, she is. She's a Mary Sue.
That was certainly something.
I love this diagram.
This is this is just
Can I
horrible,
just-
horrible logic. This is.
I can also point out to one massive flaw in this diagram. When it goes to, like, is it a female character? No, every other point goes to Mary Sue, when really that should be going to Gary Stu or Larry Stu, as that's the commonly referred gendered term for a male Mary Sue.
This is
So even that they got wrong.
You know how you get logic wrong on so many levels? Like, this is every step of this is wrong. And it's their definition of trying to make a straw man. If you're going to make a straw man, guys, do a good straw man at least. Like, actually give it some value so we can say, oh, yeah, you're punching it. Okay, I see where you're going.
Can I just
straw
point
man made
out
of low quality
that-
straw. I mean,
Can I also point out that
artificial straw.
Smudboy just got $2 for LIteratureDevil's performance.
Yeah, well, he has to entertain himself. He's been through this before. It's kind of painful for the rest of us. That was kind of fun.
Like, you get to
Actual
gain
acting
money
too.
from this.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Best
Yes,
LD
that's true.
voice ever, 10 out of 10. Thank you very much. I would actually kind of want a poster of this. It's so entertaining to me. It makes me smile just to see this diagram.
Honestly, I think if I tried that voice he just pulled, my voice would just be hurting right now.
Yeah, we need more exasperated female British people on this cast. Because
Oh,
we
absolutely.
should just get all the British women we can find and just throw them on. The show.
Fantastic.
Okay. As amazing as this photo is, let's keep going.
Is coming to a vague conclusion without explaining why these particular character traits are bad. It would be more useful to explain why a character is bad or why they were poor.
What? You just asked why they're bad.
Well, he does this a lot, by the way. He contradicts himself. He makes a point, then contradicts himself later on.
It's like, how could you go from A to B? You just said, well, why don't they define what these terms are bad? And he goes, well, why are they bad? What?
And as far as I've seen, he does this twice in a 9-minute span.
Usually, when someone explains, or someone says, okay, well, X character is a Mary Sue, and then they'll go and explain why, as they will reference why, and that is the explanation for why. So most people do explain why.
In usual cases, when teachers explain things for the third time in a row, they just sort of give up. And it's like, okay, well, you're failing the class. I mean, I can't, there's no other way I can explain this to you.
Not even that. Just not even that. Just get out of the class. Just leave. Just go. You failed. Just bye.
3 minutes, 19 seconds. I told you.
Yeah,
I warned you.
We're still going.
Poorly executed, or why their part in the story has a problem, and forget about using the term Mary Sue entirely. If you know why a character is bad, or that
Yeah, I
there's
think
a problem
I agree. You
with
should
them,
stop
then just
waffling
explain
on.
why. Bear in mind.
Okay, when we say a character is Mary Sue, we've already gone through the steps. And we know why. It's like, oh, she's doing something that she has no skill in, and yet she's the best at it out of nowhere. It's like, yep, that's a
Ray is automatically better than Poe at piloting.
She's
somehow.
best at everything.
Yeah, so
she
we
put
use
in the
it
code.
because we know
I know we missed it when we were watching the Rise of Skywalker, but there is a line that's where Chewie growls, like grunts and growls, and he goes "Roar," and Poe says, "Yeah, but Ray's not here," trying to infer that like Chewie wants Ray to be piloting instead of Poe.
Which Poe should be the designated pilot.
Yes.
Poe is this amazing, crazy pilot, and
They've already failed the dynamic. So the basic dynamic, which they should have at least done, is have Rey be the Jedi, and that's what she's good at. And Finn is the guy who shoots. He's the blaster expert, and he's good at shooting. And then you've got Poe, who's good at piloting, and that's what he's good at, and he's always going to be good at that. But then you have Rey, who's good at piloting. She's the best at piloting. She's the Jedi, and she's best at shooting as well.
Yeah, she's the best at everything. She has a max points in every single stat. You would think though that Finn would be the best fighter. And how they said that Rey's the best fighter in Rise of Skywalker. You think Finn would be because he's the only one with like an Imperial level training since birth. That's
I'm
what they
going to
said
make some
canonically since birth.
extremely nerdy jokes about Rey right now. So, if she was a D&D character, she would automatically just have the level of every single one of her stats is 80, and she'd get like plus 20 on every single roll.
That's why I said in my video that she's the DM's girlfriend. She's just gets you roll a 20. Here's a legendary sword that everyone wants to find. It's Anakin's lightsaber. You find it in a drawer in a bar because you rolled a 20.
After it gave you like horroring visions of the future that you never wanted. It's like, what?
Yeah. You also have post-cognition or precognition.
Even though you have no idea what's going on, you can see the future now. Like, what? Okay.
Also, you inherit Han Solo's Millennium Falcon, and you inherit Chewbacca for somehow. As if he
comes with the
your
ship.
property. He just comes with the ship.
He's your little slave. You get a slave, Ray. All right. He loves you.
Like she was like, I want to go home to my family.
It pays to be the DM's girlfriend. It really pays to be the DM's girlfriend.
Like Chewie's just there with a little photo, like crying over his little child, Itchy, just like looking at the photo. And then like, Ray's just like, pilot, come on, be my co-pilot.
I could see a Ray's player saying, "Isn't Chewbacca sad that Han died?" Nope, he's not sad. He's actually really happy that you're taking over the Millennium Falcon.
He screams and then he's completely fine.
Chewbacca didn't care. He's just like, "Oh, Han's dead. Well, at least there's a new pilot for the Millennium Falcon." It's like
he cared more about Leia's death than he did about Han's.
He did. It was ridiculous.
Because all he did for Han was have a little scream and shoot Kylo. What he did for like Leia was he like full on cry. And it just kind of made me sad, like how everyone's Chewie's known has just died now. Just symbolic of the entire franchise.
And I think Chewbacca's race, Wookiees, they last for what, a few hundred years? 200 years or so? Around there?
Well, unless they get a moon dropped at them in Legends.
Yeah, well.
Then that significantly reduces their lifespan.
Find that a lot of these tropes, these character traits, they show up in works of fiction that have stood the test of time. I mean, look at characters like James Bond. He's handsome, he doesn't seem to have any personality flaws, he can get out of every...
He doesn't have any personality flaws.
He does.
He's a psychopath. He goes around killing people.
James Bond has no flaws. No, you're wrong. James Bond absolutely has no flaws. I bet you can't name even one.
This is... he treats women like dirt. He just... I mean, come on. He's a spy. He does one thing well. Efficiency. Gets the job done. Doesn't matter what's in his way. Doesn't care. I don't know if you ever guys...
Also, I love how the reference of he's just attractive or good looking. Mary Sue.
Yeah, I mean, if you see how Sean Connery's Bond, there's a supercut of...
we're quite literally looking at a scene when he's trapped on a table and there is a freaking laser about to saw off his ball.
Yeah, he's
you know what didn't happen in this scene? He didn't just randomly get some new powers and escape. He had to use his guile and his intellect to convince Goldfinger. I'm pretty sure it's Goldfinger, because he's the one who really loves gold. That was a really good movie, by the way. But he had to convince Goldfinger by using his intellect and trying to use his insight on Goldfinger's personality to convince him to let him go before he's chopped in half, or before he's just cut in half by a laser. And he didn't just headbutt Goldfinger and then get some force powers or anything. He didn't develop super strength and then just pull his way out of that trap. No, he had to think fast, think on his feet, and use what he's good at: charm and being a social butterfly when need be.
Yeah, so James Bond is not a perfect character. It's just that when we think of Bond, we think of him as a super spy. So he's one of the 7 or 8. I'm trying to remember the number of double O's there are in the, at least in his movies. Like when they're all assembled together. I think with Russia with Love, they're all together in that big room. He's just one of many that do this job. So
yeah, he's just really good at his job, and that doesn't make him a Mary Sue. That just makes him good at his job. Is you can have anyone be good at their job, and you can have the stories you can tell about someone who's good at their job and what they do.
And you could argue he's naturally charming, or he has some natural luck to him because he's always winning at cards when he wants to or needs to. I would say that's closer to a problem with the story, not with the character as having a flaw or having this writer on board moment. It's just, okay, we need Bond to win. How does he win? He plays really good poker or really good blackjack or whatever the game is. Because he knows how to play. It's not just he randomly pulls it out of his ass.
Every situation like Batman, all the ladies love him, yet he's still considered a major icon in fiction, even to the point where fanboys can't handle a black woman taking on his designation.
Okay,
Oh,
we don't care that someone else is called 007. We do care if she's called Bond, because that would not be James Bond. That would be Janice Bond or something. It would be a different title of the same show. But it's not, so we don't care. She's just using the same code name, and it's just a code name. It's not a big deal.
One of my friends is like a huge Bond fan. If he was here, he could probably go on for hours about explaining more in detail about why he doesn't like this. And he's not a particularly like anti-SJW kind of person. He's like it's pretty left, but he's still got he's not quite an SJW, and if you get what I mean. So it's not that people have a problem usually, or at least the fans have a problem with her being a black woman. It's got a lot more to do with, I can't explain it because I'm not a Bond fan, but I do not believe that the reason why people don't like this is because of racism or sexism.
It's not a huge problem. When people first heard it, I remember what the blogs that came out, the YouTube videos, everyone was jumping up and down because, 007 is supposed to be a man. It's like, well, no, it's just a code name. And they clarified it later that, yeah, Daniel Craig is still Bond. He's still in the movie. So it's not about this 007. It's about the old 007, which that was my problem. Like if they're just going to take out Bond, the character, and put in a woman, it's like that's not going to work. That's a huge problem. But if you throw in a character that has their code name changed, or whatever happened to Bond, he retired, now he's coming back, totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. So I think it was a bunch of ado about nothing, and it wasn't that big a deal, personally.
I think trying to go back to my friend, I think maybe it might have been more to do with the dynamic of how Bond plays as a man. The way he's played usually has to do with more of how male tropes are,
sure.
And that's just going back to it in my head. I think that was more of his reasoning for why he wasn't happy about the change.
Yeah, I can't imagine a female playing the same character as James Bond. Like, that would not make sense to me, because it's like how is
James Bond is a man?
How is she going to flirt with men that way? It's not going to make sense, right? She would just be a female being a woman who's a super spy, which she is. So that's.
But I think what really upset people about this whole change thing is because this movie in particular was touted by the creators as a feminist movie for a Me Too era, and they're trying to really emasculate and insult and destroy James Bond's legacy. That's what they've said.
Is it still the Me Too era? I thought that was already over.
No, we're still in the era of Me Too. Mulan is getting hit hard by it too. They got rid of all the songs, and they got rid of the wonderful General Shang.
Yeah, I could imagine them getting rid of Make a Man Out of.
Yeah, they got rid of all the songs out of Mulan, and they're getting but what I call this next Bond movie, The Passion of the Bond, because I'm pretty sure what they're going to do, from what I've seen from all the previews of this movie, is that they're going to just wheel around James Bond for 2.5 hours, however long this movie is, just continuously.
Well, in
insulting him
the
and degrading him.
trailers, in the trailers, is that moment where, what was it, like he signs up to the desk, and he's like Bond, and they say who, and it's a James Bond. It's like, oh yes, just that's it, and trying to imply that this person didn't know who he was, and
Yeah,
it's
like
kind of the same moment in Star Trek Picard when he goes to the desk at, was it like Starfleet headquarters, and he says Picard, and he says, yep, and your first name, oh yeah, and spell it. It's just like, fuck me, and then it's so confusing, or they even contradict themselves, because they say that, you know, Picard is on the brochures of the Federation, or everyone was paying attention to him last night on the interview. So it's like, okay, so is he well known or is he forgotten?
Like, how do you forget? How do you forget Captain Picard? I mean, he did some of the most influential and iconic things in Starfleet history.
He was the captain of the flagship for how many years?
Multiple flagships, apparently. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. Was it? I think it was the E and D. I don't think you did the F.
Well, whatever the Sovereign class was, I'm a little skeptical on how the movies connect.
The Sovereign class was the E. The F was, I don't know if either of you have seen Star Trek Online. There's a ship which is referenced as the F in that it's a fan design ship, so that's even better. It's actually pretty good. And it's been referenced to in the comic. I think it's the Countdown to Darkness comic, and Data becomes the captain of the Enterprise.
Well, in regards to James Bond, James Bond is not a Mary Sue. He is on the scale, though, but that's never a problem because we understand him being a super spy who's been in the business. He's a risk taker. He is trained to be a killer. He is trained in espionage. That's his role. He is the best at
even
it.
from
and
just from movie one, you can assume that he's had some experience under his belt, as long with his training.
Yes.
Just to replying to a comment in the chat. So he says that Bond is about to talk to a woman and she'll stop him. It's like, you can't just talk to women that way. In fact, I imagine Bond getting slapped. Like, he tries to make some moves on a woman and automatically he just gets slapped or shot.
Oh yeah, this is going to be Passion of the Bond. He's going to be whipped and beaten until the very end of the movie.
In Captain Marvel's deleted scene, there was just that one guy who made like a kind of a mild flirt towards her, and like she touched her, he touched her map, and all of a sudden she's like saying, "Oh yeah, I need your jacket and your keys. I want your bike," and she's like threatening to break this guy's hand,
shatters all of his bones.
And then he became the Don, the legend, and that we shall never forget.
All praise the Don.
Just his designation of 007, you crybabies. I'm also very sure that a lot of people watching this video right now have just used the term to describe a character they don't like, for one reason or another, probably even having a whole...
No, it's not because we don't like them. We're explaining why, why are we even trying with this video anymore?
We're only 4 minutes in. He's got some points to make, I'm sure. He's got to bring it back.
Oh.
There's got to be something of value here. There has to be. If he's going to go on for 25 minutes, he's got to say something original. I'm hoping.
List of characters. Although, wanna bet your list may differ from others? Here, let's try it. Here are some characters that I've heard people call, to one degree or another, a Mary Sue. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Tommy Oliver, Harry Potter, Harry's mom, Hermione, Optimus.
I just want to point out that not all these characters are female, so surely there's something. Most of them aren't Mary Sue's. In fact, I'm not quite sure how you can call Optimus Prime a Mary Sue when he, like in most continuities, he fucking dies. And then he gets, in the original G1 series or movie, Rodimus Prime took over, or that's my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, the amount of times he's fought and been defeated by Megatron. In fact, one of the movies, the bad movies, he died and then maybe get brought back to life by some really weird means.
Then there's every DC or Marvel comic book character who have multiple iterations and multiple power levels and multiple backstories by multiple writers, by multiple artists, multiple
Over
eras.
lots of years.
I mean, I'm sure in one story, I'm sure Superman was a Mary Sue. I'm sure there was, just because there's
probably.
so many. By probability alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So fine, but you have to quote it. You have to say, see, in this episode or comic book number 197 of Superman Returns, and then it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, there it is. But
The
you
characters
have to
are allowed to get better. Okay, you can have a character be a Mary Sue, and then if a future writers or maybe even the same writer take that character, and then pull them back a little bit, give them struggles, and make them earn things. Characters can be saved and fixed. Okay, they don't have to stay Mary Sue forever. They can be saved and fixed. That's totally something that can happen.
Prime, Princess Twilight, Rarity, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Rey, Katniss Everdeen, Captain Marvel, the 13th Doctor, Gandalf.
Now, as she stands now, Rey is absolutely the poster child for Mary Sue. She's really up there on DV tropes as the go-to example for all things Mary Sue.
Probably right next to Korra.
Now, I have never seen Legend of Korra past the first season, so I can't really definitively say.
I watched one episode of it, and I just kind of gave up, and I continued to watch ER's like thing because I originally watched Avatar: Last Airbender, and I loved it. I only watched it a couple of years back, and I was very surprised that I kind of like shrugged it off before. But when it came to like Korra, like she's almost. There's famously the line of, "Oh, I'm the Avatar, and you better deal with it." And the world, so she ends up trashing like this really old training ritual for airbenders, and like she's ends up her tutor tries to like teach her something, and she just kind of blatantly says, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it my own way." And she goes into like fighting, and she's very brash, and ends up being that it wasn't her that was wrong, it was him. He was wrong this entire time, and he gets berated for it by the end of the episode.
It's sounding pretty bad then. It's sounding pretty bad. I think I can't remember Legend of Korra, which might be something to its detriment, because I can remember Last Airbender. I just can't remember Legend of Korra because I've seen one season of it. I saw the book 1 or whatever. I can't remember a thing about it other than Stephen Blum comes out in it as Amon. That's the only thing I can really remember, and the fact that she got defeated a little bit by Amon for a little bit. That's about it.
I just got a super chat from Alexandra Mosley. A video recommendation is Kyle Calgren BHH's video on Birth of a Nation.
I don't want to touch that movie with a 10-foot pole. Thank you very much.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what is going on with this, but just do a quick search.
You don't want to search up Birth of a Nation, I don't think.
The quality between like Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra is so like bizarre to me. I do know that Dave Filoni originally worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender before he went to Clone Wars. Maybe that's the reason why it went down so. But who knows? Probably someone who's more got more inclined with the behind the scenes.
Well, I'll definitely check out that video. It's only 10 minutes long at a later date, but thank you for the suggestion. I always appreciate it. Let's keep going.
Korra, Kirito, and I'm very sure at this very moment you guys are scratching your heads at some of the names on this list.
Hold on, what was the last character he named?
Kirito.
Is that the one from Sword Art Online?
You got it.
Is he a strong independent woman?
Does he have a sword?
No. Wait, he does have a sword though, doesn't he?
Yes.
At the last part, I honestly thought he was about to say Kermit the Frog is a Mary.
Kermit the Frog obviously is the king of Mary Sue's, but we can give him a pass because
he's just forgotten to use.
He's a frog.
That's a meme.
We give him a pass because he's a frog.
We give him a pass because he's a straight male. Okay, this is be honest. He's a straight green male, so he gets a pass. Okay, he gets a full free pass being Mary Sue for being a straight green male.
And going, what? No way they're a Mary Sue. Who said that? It's almost as if the term is very vague and is an excuse.
Or maybe it's just being misused and not being referenced correctly. Maybe this person who has said this has not been able to explain why they believe that this X character,
Yeah, it's like it's
is a
almost like
Mary Sue.
very important substantive things can be misused as
Wow.
labels.
What a concept. It's like you
You know,
go to
it-
school and you learn words, but you don't understand their meaning. Wow, never happened before. Ever
Yeah, I
seen
mean,
this happen? Yeah.
Well, Nazis become what's such a nebulous term. It's meaningless now. Like Nazis are still a thing. It's a little bit.
And people can be wrong about things as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's neo-Nazi
That's like saying-
and there's Nazis from 1945 that you probably should study if you don't want history to repeat itself. It's an important thing to happen. Okay, it's an important thing to study.
But like, take any kind of writing trope, or anything, and anything anyone can said can be wrong. But that doesn't mean that, for example, if someone falsely says that something is a Deus Ex Machina, and well, this is no, actually it isn't because this, that, and the other, and the person ends up being wrong. That doesn't mean that there's never ever been a Deus Ex Machina ever, and it doesn't devalue, the term Deus Ex Machina whatsoever. It just means it was used and not referenced correctly.
Yeah, I mean,
Music.
things can be misused or you can label things the incorrect thing just because you have animosity towards that person or thing or movie or whatever. Doesn't mean it's real, but it doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean that label is correct. But it doesn't also mean that the label, because it's misused so often, is now meaningless or without substance. It could totally still be meaningful and useful. But it is, like I'm trying to say, is that it doesn't lose meaning or substance. It's because a lot of people tend to misuse it. It might be, unfortunately, a detriment that so many people have misused it, and it becomes people become more skeptical about it. And maybe the term Mary Sue might be, especially nowadays, be falling into that category. But even if it doesn't stop the term Mary Sue from being unimportant, or it doesn't stop it from being important, and it doesn't become unimportant because people misuse it.
Against characters people don't like for one reason or another, or something very arbitrary and superficial or stupid. Also, notice how a lot of these characters are women? Yeah, here comes the uncomfortable truth. The term is very much used against female characters. In fact, that's how...
Well, I don't think a lot of people, or at least in a lot of continuities of DC, that Wonder Woman has been referred to as a Mary Sue, as the world does not often revolve around her. Like, I'm just using my references of the the animated shows like Justice League and I guess other media which is kind of related to that stuff. Lots of things like movies, etc., etc.
Yeah. And the thing is, he brings up this whole thing about us calling female characters Mary Sues, but he doesn't step back and think, well, why do we call them that, or are they Mary Sues? Doesn't ask the question, all these female characters Mary Sues? No, it's automatically not, because we just hate women, I guess.
I think that in like modern times, it's became more. It used to be, probably still used to be. I could try and explain. So maybe the reason why it is more female characters that are Mary Sues is, well, early on in fan fictions, it used to be because I guess more women had fantasies, and obviously more would probably write fan fiction about them trying to be in a certain role of a show they're really passionate about.
No, he actually goes into this in a second here.
In a modern sense, it's probably more because of political messaging, or not messaging, more just, I guess, more for political reasons in general when it comes to these kinds of characters. I especially think that's true for Rey, because they view that a female character can never be weak at any point. They can never have anything that's relatable. They just have to be powerful, because they think that a strong female character is, or sorry, a good female character is a one that is just constantly strong and does everything amazingly, etc., etc.
It started when the term was first used. The term was originally used in a Star Trek fanzine in the 70s, mostly to act as a parody of self-insert wish-fulfillment fan-made original characters.
Because that's exactly a huge problem in fanfic. It's exactly right.
I like how he chose not to say who the author was of that parody. A person
Was
named
it a
Paula
woman?
Smith, who happened to be a woman. And I gave context to this when I did my morning stream. But the context is that Paula Smith was also happened to be an editor of a fanzine, and I forgot what the reason was, but there was a Star Trek was big. Star Trek was huge at that time, and the reason there was something happened where the fan fiction pieces that were being sent in were a huge surge of them were being written by very lonely housewives who had crushes on Kirk and Spock, and so there was a huge surge of fanfics coming in that starred characters that were just younger versions of the housewives, the self-inserts, and their whole purpose was not to really tell a story, but to play out their romantic fantasy with either Kirk or Spock, or maybe even both, and then be awesome. That's why Paula Smith was. That's why she was inspired to write the fanfic parody in the first place, because there were so many of these, and she saw a pattern from all of these stories that she read, and she put them all together and just made fun of them all and her own little parody.
Also, how dare they draw this little comic here in the 2009 version of Star Trek?
Okay, you're offended by that?
No, well, it's quite obviously like the Kirk
new
from
one.
2009. Yeah.
The J.J. Abrams one.
I despise the J.J. Abrams Star Trek, so why wouldn't you just use the original, especially since that's the context for the original fanfiction?
That's what that was the movies with all the lens flares, right?
Yeah.
Lots of everything. Explosions.
Lots of explosions and random sequences that don't make sense, like the ship comes out of hyperspace and the ship that's the same size of it somehow is now like 10 times the size of it when it's a wreckage and it's flying through all the debris. Yeah, there's lots of problems with that movie.
Now, the problem with coming to that kind of conclusion, and don't pretend you've never done it when you were a geeky teenager, the kind of people writing wish fulfillment like that are teenagers. Very young writers with no experience.
Or they're elderly women who don't have just as much writing experience and doing exactly the same. Anyone can write crap at any age, folks. Okay? You can do anything really badly at any age, in fact. So it's not
just about the wish fulfillment. Also, it's not just about the age and the inexperience of the writers. It's also the way they're writing the story. They're writing the story in service to themselves and not in service for the actual story they're trying to make.
And sometimes
the only reason why they're doing it.
Sometimes a good writer can do that because they have a desire to write, and that's totally fine. You can write.
No. What I mean is for their insert character, because obviously, ultimately, you have to have a good story, and that then encompasses the characters and everything. But they're not doing it because they want to make a good story. They're doing it because they purely want the self-insert of there's amazing things happening, and that's just not a good way to write the story. You could write that, you could have it write it as well as you want, but the pure fact that it's nothing but, I say it's a bit difficult to write as well as you want. But you could try and make it as much quality as you want with one of the best writers, but it's still going to be a bad story because they're just purely focusing on the insert elements.
Oh, exactly. I mean, here's one thing about from what you said, they do not care about the story. Okay, and we can see this with a lot of shippers like the Raylos, and the thing is that they don't when they're writing fanfic about their chosen romantic fantasy story where they're getting with one character, having two characters get together, is that they do not care about anything else. So because The Last Jedi really advanced the Reylo narrative that Rey and Kylo Ren are going to get together in some romantic capacity in the future, it's from what I've seen, okay, the patterns I've seen, the attitudes I've seen from shippers and things and fanfic writers and all that stuff, is that they don't care about the story of Last Jedi. They'll say it's brilliant simply because it advanced the Reylo agenda. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It fits in right with that pattern.
It's basically making the written equivalent of fan art. And here's the thing.
Yes, the written
Thing is,
equivalent of fan art is called fan fiction. Thank you. That's great.
when it comes to fan art, usually it's pretty easy to sift through the quality fan art from the terrible fan art. That's usually because the good fan art will get lots of likes, and it'll be very upheld, and you can easily know if it's good or bad art just purely by looking at it. You look at it instantly. It's good shading, it's good form, it's drawn beautifully, like you've done the lighting wonderfully as well, and they've got lots of details in there. But when it comes to writing in lots of capacities, you can't just look at it and think that's a good story right there. You have to look at it and you have to analyze it. You have to go over and over again. And I think because it takes so long and it's quite difficult to tell if a story is good or bad, we get lots of, we get this kind of atmosphere we have today where anyone just upholds The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens or The Rise of Skywalker as being great films, because it's hard to tell. You can't just look at writing like you can a piece of art and say that's good or bad.
I give Miguel Rubio made a good little comment here. Anyone can write crap. Inspiring words from Smudboy. I think you should put that on a T-shirt.
Oh yeah,
and fan
merch.
fiction.
Anyone can write
Even
crap.
you can write crap. Okay.
Also, fan fiction also, it doesn't. I try to think. I had the word now, but I've lost it. It doesn't require as much talent either. As I said, it is difficult just to look at it and
Oh yeah.
Well, the
art
comparison
requires a lot more talent.
The comparison is to the visual medium of drawing and art. Anyone can look at a piece of work and go, "Hey, you know what? That looks good." And then you can look at an artist who knows how to use light and shading and contour and perspectives. Like, oh, that looks better because there's more to it. It's visually obvious. You don't have to understand it to look at something and say it looks better just because more is happening on the page. Whereas with words and ideas, you have to understand the actual ideas. They're presented to you in a certain way. And if you read a story about a nurse chapel who's a god suddenly, who can do whatever in sickbay that the bones can't do, like, okay, yeah, something's going on here. This is not what I understand from continuity and how doctor nurses work and the training involved in both. So it's like, yeah, someone's taking some liberties here to do something for some reason. And that's where we start investigating how such stories came about. It's all from the work of fan fiction.
Another thing about fan fiction versus fan art. Fan art, you can't have Mary Sue's or at least Gary Stu's because that art is not really a story. You can't have a story, a character, a world bend around a character if there is no story being told it through that art.
Right. Anyway, just got a super chat, Mr. Mad Courier 6. Thank you, sir. I've read some really damn well-made fan fiction before. Yes, they do exist. They are certainly out there. I totally agree. Written by people.
They are very hard to find.
They are. This is very hard to find. This is true. Written by people who know a hell of a lot more about storytelling than anyone in Hollywood apparently does. And this is very much a true thing. You're going to have to sift through a lot, though, like a lot of crap to find the good stuff. I don't mean that in a negative way, meaning your story is horrible. It's just because I've seen so much that it just this borderline level of just it is a story, but there's just so much wrong with it that it becomes crap to me. And that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure your work is a very personal expression of your intellect and your fandom, and that's totally cool. I get that. But yeah, there are good writers out there who aren't professional. That is very true. So.
Yeah, I personally read some very good fan fiction. In fact, that's why I always say that if you are a fledgling writer, if you've just like starting into writing and trying to get your skills together, or trying to sharpen them and see where you are creatively, I would suggest going into fan fiction. Just test out your skills in fan fiction. Fan fiction is pretty much the training wheels of the writing world. If you want to start writing stories, because everything is already made for you. It's like a pre-made box it's like a starter kit for writers. And you have characters that are already pre-made. They're already fleshed out. You have backstories. You have lore. You have worlds. You have all kinds of stuff that you can just step into and start playing around with the toys. And that's a good way to start off your skills and start working on your techniques and how you word things and your characterizations and things like that. So it's perfectly fine to write fan fiction. It's a good practicing technique, I think. And yeah, I mean, Mary Sue's they're bad characters and products of bad writing, but if you make one, do not be discouraged, because I'm pretty sure most, if not all, people who just start off in writing, they end up creating Mary Sue's for their first characters. It's kind of a natural thing that just occurs. What needs to happen though is you need to evolve past that. Just you make your Mary Sue's, you learn why they're Mary Sue's, and you grow and make better characters later on.
Here's a interesting super chat by Mr. E.C. Cons. Inferno by Dante Alighieri is self-insert fanfic. I'm kind of curious about that. It's an interesting story, if anyone knows about Dante Alighieri. Or Dante's Inferno. If you know any, I don't know, this is kind of strange because I met a lot of Catholic women who've read Dante or Dante's Inferno, and they loved it. And I was like, okay, what? Because it's a romantic story. It's a lot
of fun.
It is very creative. It's fantastical. So there's lots of elements to it that I could see the not the fanfic writer, but the average Catholic or Catholic girl liking, and like it relates to their faith, and they have all these weird dreams about it. So that's an interesting take of fantasy with lore that's already established of something that you're already into if you're, of course, religious, that you can relate to. And it works for some people in that way. I guess some people in university who actually study these things in the English or the arts, they do it for the sake of studying, not because they like it. But learning about those stories and those genres of work and where they came from and how they were created really helps us understand where they're coming from, so that when you do see a trope, why are angels and devil? Why is there a guide through hell? Why is there a guide through heaven? Who is it? Who are these are the why you study the classics, to figure these things out, how you use these techniques.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I like the Divine Comedy, and yeah, it is pretty much it's literally a self-insert. It's Dante writing about himself traveling through hell and purgatory and heaven. But it's really interesting. It's really interesting concept because he gets led by, I think, his favorite poet, which is Virgil. It's kind of like if I wrote the Divine Comedy and had like a Neil Gaiman show me through hell, purgatory, and heaven. It's really interesting. Like it's pretty much your ancient version of a fanfic. Well, not ancient, but your very first iteration of what you could call a self-insert fanfic. And Zofrat says, "Careful, literature devil. You know what happened last time you told us to write fan fiction." Yes, I remember.
I was wondering about that.
Now people
Is
are
there a
going.
story?
Yeah, it was my morning stream. Now people are going to write fan fiction about me because I told them to write fan fiction.
So long as they're not writing fan fiction about your Let's Plays, I think that'd be too much for me.
The Gary Stew.
Give Gary a stew. Gary Stew, what a muffin! It's like, oh my god, what do I do? Muffins, my reason for being. I must attend literature club. Okay. Here we go.
I just imagine just the next day kind of waking up and there's just like a load of comments and stuff in the stream just talking about like, oh, look here, and it's just like LIteratureDevil slowly caresses the face of Smud.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on.
Making wish fulfillment fan fiction for fun, where one's OC is irresistible to Damon Salvatore, the Winchester brothers, Superboy, Nightwing, Sasuke, Zuko. Shut up, you've all done it.
While it might be fun, it doesn't make it a good story. Having fun writing a story and writing a good story are things which are completely.
He's trying to argue that it's okay because it's just for fun. The thing is, if it's just for fun, then you're the only one reading it. But if you put it out in the public section, you put it out in a public forum where other people are going to read it, and you're expecting other people to read it and like it, it's you should probably be concerned with some sort of standard, some sort of telling a story that people will enjoy, not just your strange personal romantic sequence.
And it's not to say you can't have fun writing good work, but there's like so many hurdles you have to pass first before you make a good piece of work, and then you say, oh, you know what? I'm on a roll. I'm feeling great. I'm going to keep writing, or whatever the case may be with your technique, or how you're, 2 hours a day, 4 hours a day, 1 hour a day. Great, good for you. But you have to do it's effort, it's work. It's like any other skill. You can't just sit back and I'm going to write a poem. It's going to be epic and everyone's going to love it. It's like, no, that takes heart. That takes time and contemplation and a genuine feeling to write stuff down and have someone actually want to read it and feel anything from it. So
Exactly.
Also, just to go over, it's like, oh well, the people who were writing this, yeah, everyone's written a Mary Sue at some point. It's like, no. For instance, I've only made one story properly whilst it's still in production, in fact, and the character that I have made, well, it's still up for, you can argue if it's a good character or not. I probably in the last two Blood's dying. You could probably say it's a bad character, but you definitely couldn't say it was a Mary Sue because this character ends up failing, and things actually happen to them, and the world doesn't bend around them. So no, not everyone has made a Mary Sue.
Yeah, I mean, probably not everyone. And he's trying to say it's okay. Like they're just having fun, therefore it's okay to pump out terrible writing. And no, it's not okay. Like it's acceptable because you're just starting out. That's fine. You can. You're not expected to be the next great American author or any sort of great author when you're just starting off with your first piece. Nobody does that. Even the greats, they haven't done that. Everyone starts off on an amateur level when you're just starting. Some people might start off better than others, but usually it's an amateur version of yourself. But it's not ultimately okay for you to be terrible, to pump out a terrible work and then expect people to like it. What you should do is pump out your first work and then take feedback instead of saying that, I'm just doing this for fun, therefore I don't need to put any skill or thought or effort into it. Okay, if you're just doing it for fun and you don't want any feedback, if you're just doing it to write something that you want to write about and you don't want any feedback, or you're not trying to make a series or anything like that people will actually enjoy, then keep it to yourself or just share it around with your friends. But if you're posting on a public forum, you're probably going to want people to read it, and are expecting people to like it. So it's not okay to write terrible stuff. It is acceptable, just as long as you try to get better and improve yourself.
Yeah, before you go to publishing, always get a second opinion, an editor, another writer, whatever your process is. Get a second opinion, get some feedback, and re-edit, edit.
Anyway, let's just keep going.
Is the one time where having 0 writing standards is okay. It's not canon.
Okay, having 0 writing standards, I don't think is ever an okay thing to say. It's like saying you have zero cooking standards. Go crazy in the kitchen. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I just made these cookies for fun. I can have 0 cooking standards if I wanted.
Yeah, so
It doesn't work that way.
No, it's not. That's not what you do in the kitchen. That's not what you do on the typewriter. It's not what you do in life. So.
It's just for fun. It's a stupid fantasy. That's all.
Oh, so he's admitting it's a stupid fantasy. Okay, great. We have some common ground here. The Mary Sue is a stupid fantasy.
So even Julz Chen says, oh, yeah, it is terrible, but you should just let it go for some reason. You're policing my behavior. So they can
We're the fun
they're allowed
police.
to have 0 writing standards.
Okay,
so
so
if 0 standards.
I just want to say, if you don't care about the writing good story, then you shouldn't care about people criticizing that story of its quality.
Yeah, it was just for fun, right? I mean, you
just-
even you probably know it's bad at that point.
Yeah, so you shouldn't care about the criticisms if you're just doing it for fun.
That's an odd argument to make, saying, this term doesn't really mean anything. Just have fun. It's like, okay, well...
You have no standards, so it's okay. I mean, it's okay for this one instance where you have no standards.
Just write on the walls, right off the page. Fold your paper into origami. I go, yeah, just have fun.
And what a nice coddle culture, safe space culture sort of mentality.
You're really in an English class, but you know what? You could make paper airplanes out of all these books. Go ahead. It's fun.
This is a terrible essay. Oh, you're just having fun? Okay, and A+ then.
So stop being the fun police with your shitty writing standards. I understand wanting to sift past all the crappy fan work and get to the good stuff because you're using fan works as supplementary material until new stuff comes out for your show, but don't confuse writers by...
What is he talking about? The show? Whose show?
Like I think some people we start trying to talk about is some people go to, like, if you finish this one season finishes and you're really excited for the next season, you go to fan fiction to get your fix.
I've
Well, then the
never
show comes
done
out.
that, so
But I think that's what he's talking about.
Okay, I could see that from people who want to buy a book and they wait for the third game to come out, or whatever.
The thing is, I guess I've never encountered it that much, but because it's very difficult to find well-written fan fiction. But
It is.
because there is no kind of quality standard, that means that that gives the the kind of the general opinion that people have that fan fiction is terrible and it's not worth your time.
Well,
So imagine if a lot more fan fiction writers actually held their work to a higher standard of quality.
exactly. So
Then it would be well known for the great quality of fan fictions.
And
No.
the beautiful thing with that is because when writing is bad, with the case of the ending of Mass Effect 3, when we looked at fan fiction, there was a lot of great ending fan fiction because anyone could do better than Mass Effect 3's ending. And I literally read like 7 or 8 that I thought were just, some of them weren't even complete stories. They were just analogies or they were summaries. It's like, yeah, this is really good summary compared to what we got. It made sense.
There are some talented writers out there who haven't produced any, like they haven't gotten published, but they have produced quality, well-constructed fan fiction. If I might be misremembering this, they might not even be holding this category anymore. But I think I read that the Hugo Awards actually consider some fan fiction for awards if it's good enough, if it's the criteria.
I can't recall. I thought the Hugos were all done by writers, or is that the Writers Award? I can't recall the votes.
The Hugo Awards, you get kind of nominated by the voters, and they can pick whatever work they want. And I think fan fiction was also acceptable.
That's interesting.
At least it used to be.
Yeah.
I suppose a
Boiling
good
down-
example of like fan fiction could be, I guess, in a different extent, fan films. Because a fan film actually usually takes a lot more talent and resources to make than a fan fiction, so it has a bit more of a vetting process. Because you need to have money, you need to have talent behind it. You need people to do writing, you need people to do acting, and it's not just someone sitting there on the evening. It's like, okay, I kind of want to make some fan fiction between Kirk and Spock, so let me just pull out my keyboard and let's get this thing going.
A bunch of problems to 2 words with a vague description and think you're helping, especially if the creator in question wants to get better as they get older. But sadly, as time went on, the parody and the concept of the Mary Sue started bleeding into fandoms, and lazy people started using the term to describe characters they don't like, arbitrarily setting up criteria for good character design and setting up a list of bad character design.
Okay, so
It's not arbitrary.
Setting up a list for
any means.
good character design is not really a good idea because it's so nebulous. What you can pick out is what's easier to pick out is designs for bad character design, which is pretty much the Mary Sue. But there's so much there. There's really no limit to how you can construct different elements of character to make a good one. You can, however, identify what kind of makes a bad one. That's what
the problem I have with what he just said was the premise itself. He's saying Mary Sue is okay. You're just doing it wrong. It's like, okay, it was designed as a parody of how to do something wrong in the first place. How are you making it good? Like, what's the solution for making it? I'm all for making something bad good, but you can't say I'm going to make this Deus Ex Machina sing. It's like, what? How is that going to work? So this is like going from bad to trying to make something good through being bad. That doesn't make too much sense to me.
Tyler Preston comment, I just want to highlight it. Stop being the fun police, and in quotation marks, another quote in quotation marks, stop having these female characters designed.
Yeah, stop being the fun police and critiquing people's work.
Wow.
Just let them have their
criticism
fun.
works.
Let them have fun.
Well,
Especially
I
if they want to get better. Just stop critiquing their work if you want them.
I think the comment was trying to point out the kind of hypocrisy. It's like, oh yeah, stop ruining people's fun, and then the same person will comment, it's like, stop having these characters be.
I just got a super chat from Mad Courier 6. Thank you, sir. The SCP Foundation's got some great fan films. I don't know what SCP Foundations are.
That's a secure, contain, protect. That's a fantastic. I love that SCP stuff. It's pretty much a what was it? Creepypasta
Website.
stuff. Yeah, creepypasta stuff. It's really good. I had no idea they had fan films though. I'm gonna check those out. incredible.
Interesting.
It's basically lots of horror things. It's like they've got like big pages on a website about them, and they're all fan designed. They've even got a couple of games that people have made.
I've never heard of this fandom, but I think I'll check it out since you guys seem to know about it.
Yeah,
It's cool.
Excellent.
I only know about it through I watch a couple of Markiplier videos, and I've got a couple of friends who are really obsessed.
Some of the websites have been taken over by far leftist NPC nonsense, but the original stuff is good. It's excellent stuff. It's basically an organization that finds unusual creatures and items and they secure, contain, and protect them. And each of them have a label as to how dangerous they are.
Or just Hayden Shotner just there's his comment which I kind of point out. Is there a reverse Mary Sue where no one likes them? Universe bends them over to screw them, and they have no redeeming qualities. And would it be bad?
There's something called an anti-Sue. I think it's on TV Tropes. I think that what you're talking about is an anti-Sue, which is actually came about by people trying so hard not to make a Mary Sue. They go the extreme opposite, and they're this bad at everything. The thing about that is it's not a good idea either, because your main character should be good at something. There should be a reason why we're following them around.
And they should be endearing in some sense and relatable.
They have to have something attractive about them, whether it's a skill or whether they got to a certain position as a result of some action. Visually attractive, it could be many things, but you have to get something.
Even in the Mary Sue, even in the everyman scenario where you have the thriller and everything, your everyman guy is just your average Joe. He might be just a construction worker or maybe a plumber or something like that. He's just a average guy. Maybe has a family, works paycheck to paycheck, but he gets thrown into this strange scenario involving maybe spies and stuff. And the reason why we're following this guy around and not the spies or something is because this guy has a unique skill or is able to get out of the trouble better than the trained spies can. They has one good skill or some unique talents or some connection or something like that allows him to become the hero of the story as opposed to the James Bond right next to him. It's so you can every man is a good place to go for how to do not a Mary Sue, but how to do a character great. It's not a Mary Sue, but is not great at much else either. It's an average Joe guy who, but the thing is, your average Joe needs to have at least one specific talent that makes him worthy of being the main character.
It's interesting to think about that, how we can attribute a good character based on having at least one quality that is attractive, whether it could be like he's really good at killing people or whatever, but it's something to catch your interest, which is probably not the greatest way to describe a character. It's like, the most generic thing you could say about someone is like, you gotta hook them into something. Like, just hook them. But how?
You want to make them unique in some way as well. Like, some reason that makes them stand out from everyone else. Like, Joker, the reason why he stands out is because he's a little bit nuts. The reason why Luke Skywalker stands out is because he has the Force, in a sense. He becomes the hero. That's what makes him interesting and different. And lots of characters have this reason why they're different.
And even if you put aside the fact that Luke Skywalker has the Force, he was characterized as an excellent pilot, like a better than average pilot. That was his one unique skill throughout the first movie, at least. And that's what really made and saved the day, that he was a really, really good, talented pilot. And the Force didn't hurt either.
This is ignoring the fact that a lot of the character types that I mentioned earlier, who are often synonymous with the term Mary Sue, are seen as adored in some of the best works of fiction, still heralded as quality entertainment to this day. The best works of fiction ignore this.
Gandalf isn't a Mary Sue, though.
You see,
I don't watch Harry Potter, but as far as I'm aware, he's not a Mary Sue.
Yeah, he's not giving specific examples. He's just saying, I listed a bunch, pick one. It's like, no. Which one, buddy? You can't just say, because you listed Rey up there. We're like, okay, number one. What else you got?
Explain to us why she's not a Mary Sue if you don't think she is.
Yeah, a lot of this needs referencing.
I have no idea why he thinks Gandalf was a Mary Sue, apparently. I have no idea on that one. Because it's explained very well in the lore of Lord of the Rings why Gandalf can do the things that he does.
so-called list of bad character designs made by people who love this stupid fanfic term. Overly competent? Hello, James Bond and Batman. Paragons? Hello, Gandalf.
Okay, yeah, but it's all explained. Like these
And they're all explained or reasonable or give enough ambiguity that we can kind of assume why they're so confident and competent. In the case of James Bond, we can assume that he's as a professional spy who's attained a high status in the British government of spies. You know, the high ranking of and their spy. I don't know, people.
Also,
spy organization.
Gandalf got his ass kicked by Sauron.
Oh yeah, he gets beaten a lot. He gets beaten by Saruman. He gets beaten by the Balrog.
Yeah.
He has flaws. He's not perfect. Yeah, he's smarter than
he has
the
to
rest.
retreat in battles as well because sometimes he just can't win. He's not enough. You get the black guy and the winged creature, the shadow wraith things. I've been ages since I watched Lord of the Rings. Like, doesn't he kick his ass as well?
The eagle?
No, not the eagle. It's like the black dragon and the ring wraith. Doesn't the ring wraith like end up fucking up Gandalf?
I don't remember if he fought Gandalf or not, but I don't think Gandalf could beat the ring wraith.
I need to rewatch Lord of the Rings. It's been so long. I'm sure Wolf would rip my ass apart right now for not watching it in forever.
Yeah, his
Like, you haven't watched it in 2 years? Oh my god!
I remember I was on stream with him that was a while back, and I got my references wrong. He's like, that's not in the second book, that's in the first book. It's like, oh wow, thanks. You just knew that off the top of your head? Like, wow. He's really into it. So
Yeah, I used to watch his videos like really early on, and he's always been obsessed with Lord of the Rings.
He's just the thing is what Julz Chan is doing is he's just pointing out things that his points of argumentation, and he's just listing characters. And he's not explaining why these characters are the part of his argumentation.
I could literally say LIteratureDevil's a Mary Sue, and that's about the same level of explanation that this person is using.
Pretty much. Like, hyper competent people. Hello, James Bond. You would call what I'm getting from this, and you might disagree, but what I'm getting from his argumentation, how he's phrasing his argumentation, is that he's saying that if we kept our standard of what we would normally call a Mary Sue, that we would be calling James Bond and Superman Mary Sues. That's like how we call Ray a Mary Sue. If we call Ray a Mary Sue, we'd be calling James Bond and Superman a Mary Sue, or Gandalf a Mary Sue. He's not. In order to do that, in order to explain this or convince me that we are wrong, or that these characters would be classified as Mary Sues, as we would call them Mary Sues, and we call Ray a Mary Sue, he's going to have to list reasons why. But he's just naming them. Not really helping much.
Superman and Shiro, powers coming out of nowhere. Hello, Danny Phantom. Chosen ones as part of a hero's journey.
Again, Danny Phantom's powers are explained. His powers just don't come out. They come from somewhere. Okay, it's called the Phantom Zone, and he was trapped in that little barrier thing, the little gateway. That's how he got his powers.
Luke wasn't the chosen one. That was Anakin.
Yeah, Luke was not a chosen one. He was the main character of a hero's journey, but he wasn't a designated chosen one. So you're wrong, Julz Chan.
The only reason why the chosen one, the only reason why he's, I guess, referred to as so powerful now is because he was the son of the chosen, but he's not himself the chosen one.
Now, you can have an instance where you can have a powerful character whose powers go unexplained if it's part of a trilogy. So if they had at least hinted at why Rey got these powers, and if they remained within the confines of the already pre-established lore and how the Force works, then that would have been fine. As long as we get an answer eventually, and as long as they hint at it from the very first movie. But they didn't do any of that. They didn't stay within the confines of established lore. They didn't respect the continuity of the Force, and they definitely didn't have any hints as to why, because we know, in the meta context, that they just added in Palpatine at the last minute in the last movie. So we know nothing was planned, and so we didn't really get any good hints as to why she was so uniquely powerful.
I'm kind of curious. He put a picture of Ash Ketchum on the screen. If I remember being a kid watching the show, he kind of gets beaten a lot, doesn't he?
He wins a lot, but he also gets defeated a lot. It's kind of, I wouldn't say
Isn't that
50, maybe 75-25.
I remember a lot of the episodes are structured around like he loses or something happens, and then he ends up learning or adapting to what happens, and that's the structure of most episodes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he
But then again, I
struggles a
haven't
lot.
seen Pokemon for like.
I remember. I haven't seen Pokemon in a long time, but I do remember his battle with Brock because I remember that was one of the more interesting battles. He loses. He loses horribly, and then he has to go through his whole thing, his whole journey as to how to beef up Pikachu and everything. So he gets defeated pretty badly, and he has to work and earn his way to victory. He doesn't just as opposed to Ray, who just even if she fails, she on a second try, 2 seconds later, she succeeds. Big difference.
Hello, Luke. Hello, Harry. Hello, Aang. Self-insert author avatar.
But Aang also had to work for like a lot of it. Like if he starts off at the beginning only being good at airbending, and then he has to learn how to do earthbending, and he has to learn how to do waterbending, and then he learns to do firebending, and he has to go through all these trials and tribulations, and he ends up overcoming the anti. He doesn't just win straight away. He doesn't know everything like Korra.
Now,
Why did he bring up Aang in the first place? What section of his articulation was it?
Aang was like a chosen one. Oh, not chosen one. What was it?
Chosen
Well,
one?
We have to go back it.
Chosen one or unexplained powers?
Okay, let's just quickly check.
Nowhere. Hello, Danny Fandom.
Unexplained
Chosen
powers.
ones as
Chosen
part of
one.
a hero's
Okay.
journey. Hello, Luke. Hello, Harry. Hello, Aang.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, okay, but that explains why he can do multiple things, but that's not inherently a Mary Sue, as we just explained. The world doesn't bend around him. In fact, it's often a lot of confrontation to him, and lots of people don't like him because they blame him for the Fire Nation being so powerful.
Yeah.
Aang should have been there to stop it, and when he ended up disappearing for like God knows how many years.
Yeah, and he pays for a lot of his mistakes. He pays badly. He feels really bad during a lot of the show. But the thing is, Yang is probably one of the, or at least one of the few instances where the chosen one is fine because it's actually built into the lore of the world of Avatar. Because you can become an avatar and then nothing happened during your lifetime. An avatar is just a thing that happens. It's just that just in case something bad happens, you have an avatar, quell it or defeat it. But
Usually the avatars are like something interesting happens at least.
Usually, there's a possibility I think because they showed what's his name, Roku, the guy that came before. They showed him and he had like a really long good life, and then something happened. And so there was a complete chance that you could be an avatar, live out your life, and then nothing happened. It's just an avatar, just a normal phenomenon.
Is he going to say Kriya is a self-insert character?
I think so.
I'm very concerned because I don't know where he jumped the gun talking about Kriya being part of a hero's journey, or I don't know what he's talking about now. But
No, we can go back again, but he definitely said self-insert character, and then Kriya turned up.
Yeah, that's. I haven't played KOTOR 2, so I don't know too much.
How dare you? Okay, LIteratureDevil, we're gonna need an intervention here. Me and Smudboy are gonna need to force you to go on a stream and play those games.
I think the first one.
agree.
first
one
one
that's
is
fine.
good. I just think I personally enjoy the second one better, but a lot of people love
Oh,
the
the
first
second one is
more.
better. Oh, I'm much more endeared to Revan than I am the Jedi Exile. I love this. The story, I can admit, is much more well done in the second.
It's almost a continuation because you are a general of Revan, and you discover that as you go. It really illuminates what happened more with Revan as opposed to just his personal life with his apprentice and all the Sith behavior. So I actually enjoyed it a lot more. But of course, I love Chris Avellone. So Chris Avellone, whatever he touches is gold to me. So he could go to a coffee shop and I don't know, sit down with Neil Gaiman and they could just
oh no, that'll be fantastic.
They would just write on napkins all day, and I have no idea what they would say, but it would probably be gold. I just don't know how to respect it that much. But,
Team up with Neil Gaiman, that'd be fantastic.
yeah, no, I would love to see what they would do. Like Chris would be like, "Oh, we can have like a dice roll for this event, and we can create a level for that." And Neil's like, "Yeah, yeah." And then we're gonna have like angels, and we have some demons, like what, or whatever. So
It's no gaming.
yeah, it's Neil
That'll be no gaming. Just to clarify, his argumentation of people calling, if this even is an argumentation that he's heard, which it might be, I'm not saying it isn't, but if he has heard people calling characters that are at the center of a hero's journey Mary Sue's because they are at the center of a hero's journey, he wouldn't be wrong on that one. The people who calling them Mary Sue's just for being the main character on a hero's journey would be wrong. And then if chosen ones, that's an iffy one, because chosen ones, I personally don't like that trope, but they tend to be Mary Sue's because the world revolves around them, but not necessarily. So on that one particular point, Julz Chan wouldn't be wrong on that one if he heard that argumentation being made, because people making the argumentation would be wrong on that one. But a lot of these other argumentations he's making, pretty bad.
Just got
Especially the self-centered one.
Just got a super, excuse me. Just got a super chat from Joe Crazy. What a great name. Have you guys... Okay, another super chat. Slow down, guys. Have you guys looked at Linkara's webcomic Lightbringer? I had no idea he did a webcomic, let alone call it.
Yeah. You haven't? Oh, that's fantastic. It's gold. I've covered it before a little bit. A lot of YouTubers I know covered it a little bit. I think I got an award for being the worst webcomic ever made. But it's right up there with Sonic Chu.
All right, slow down, guys. One super chat at a time. Okay. we're talking about Linkara's webcomic Lightbringer, which to me sounds like the devil, but I don't know what it could be about, because I love Lucifer the comic.
He made two. It's called the Lightbringer. It was the first one I think he made. Then he made Revolution of the Mask.
Okay. These are fancy titles, but I'm not going to hold that against them. So it could be good, could be bad.
Also, what is 1,000 HUF?
It translates apparently to $5, I think. I don't know what that is.
Hey, whatever they want to give. I don't care, guys. They want to ask a question, let them ask a question. So,
yeah.
Mark it in 3D. Thank you, sir. This guy has no structure for his arguments. Also, KOTOR 2 is TLJ done right. Ow, that's, me going to the bathroom is TLJ done right. I mean, it's not a...
But now I'm interested, though. TLJ done right.
No.
The Last Jedi?
Yeah, but KOTOR 2 is basically Subversion done right, I would say. So if you want a good Star Wars story, that's where I always point people to. But yeah, in regards to this video, he is, again, it's a lot of these guys, they have a script. It's not an essay format. They have a bunch of ideas, and they just spit it out. And they have...
it's kind of like a shotgun of ideas and points that some of them he doesn't really follow up on. Just assumes that he's right and doesn't back him up with evidence or anything.
Yeah, it's kind of silly to actually listen to in this order, because I don't think we're going to get done today. Honestly, we're probably finishing in a few weeks.
I warned you.
This is bad, yeah. Here's another super chat from EC Cons. Watch overly sarcastic predictions. Mary Sue.
Overly sarcastic predictions.
Yeah.
I think it's prediction. I heard that was a good video.
Well, maybe you just wrote it wrong.
Let me just do a search for that, because there's a lot of...
It's called the channel's called Overly Sarcastic Productions. I've heard that. So I heard some people bring that video up. I've heard it was good. I'm not really sure. Are we supposed to?
Can we also
did you want us to cover it, or
the important thing here that LIteratureDevil has not played KOTOR 2?
Not yet.
That is damning to me.
Well, I mean, if you're a Star Wars fan, yeah, I would see why Shiney would react like that. But I mean. There's lots of games I think people should play, like Fallout 2 and Planescape Torment and Tyranny and all sorts of other great real-time with pause games I enjoy, but I'm not going to...
I have Tyranny. It's ready to go. I like Tyranny. Tyranny's fun.
I've been playing it for the past 2 weeks. I love this game. It's so tight, and things just start happening fantastically, and there's all this lore behind the groups. I just think it's a fantastic story. I wish Obsidian could make a sequel, but I doubt they're going to do it, so...
I'm interested. Do you want us to just watch it on our own time? Watch the Mary Sue video on our own time, or is it something you want us to cover? Because I've heard it was a good video.
Yeah, probably on our own time. It's probably a good video because it gets a million views. It's a big channel. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably. I've heard and I've seen some of their videos. They produce good stuff. I like them.
Apparently, Shadowversity did a collaboration with Overly Sarcastic.
Yeah, they did. I saw that one. It was concerning some sort of. They brought in Blue, the other half of that channel, and he helped explain the historical, some history in there.
Let's keep going.
Someone rightfully said that they have KOTOR 1 and 2 on Steam on their laptop, so there's no excuses.
Well, no. That's a perfectly good excuse because we all know LIteratureDevil's laptop's going to blow up. So
It dies just watching videos with Discord open. So what's it going to do when it plays KOTOR?
video game will blow up for sure. Yeah. So I really want to know what he has to say about Kreia. Maybe we'll stop the stream soon. I don't know what you guys feel like, but we all know where this is headed. So
Self-insert author avatars? Hi again.
what? What? That had nothing to do with Kreia. I'm sorry, sir. That makes no sense.
He's calling Luke Skywalker a self-insert, which I think he is. But doesn't mean he's a Mary Sue. It just so happens to be that a lot of self-inserts tend to be Mary Sues. But just because it's self-insert doesn't mean it's a Mary Sue.
I don't think he's a self-insert character. I think he's just an everyman. It's a kind of different. Does George Lucas? I don't know if George Lucas sees himself in Luke. Though that's just kind of occurred to me that he is called Luke and Luke is Luke. Don't know if that's a. Yeah, to me, he's been an everyman, not a self-insert.
And Luke, hi Hermione, and yes, George Lucas, Luke S, Luke Skywalker, and J.K. Rowling have said they based Luke and Hermione respectively on themselves. Heroes talked about like they're legends, and the story bends over backwards.
Okay, again, just to clarify, if someone argued that all self-inserts are Mary Sues, then they would be the ones who are mistaken. And Jules Chen would be in the right for criticizing that argumentation, that one specifically, because not all self-inserts are automatically Mary Sues.
There's plenty of examples of writer on board moments, soapbox moments for characters, and that alone obviously does not make you a Mary Sue. So
absolutely.
For them. Hey, Tommy! Speaking of Tommy, anyone even with a small experience with Power Rangers will.
Okay, here we go. Get ready for this one. This is his big moment, where he actually starts giving examples. The Green Ranger is his big example, showing us that we're wrong. So let's check it out.
Know of Tommy, the Green Ranger, and how he's super awesome, you guys. He's like a legend, you guys. Now, I like Tommy. I freaking love Tommy. He was the most interesting of the original cast, however, that wasn't a high bar to clear, since the writing wasn't on Saban's list of priorities when Power Rangers first came out. However, it's safe to say that Tommy is still beloved and worshipped by fans and showrunners alike. This is despite his personality being as one-dimensional as any other member of the original cast, or even the second set of cast members that came in after for the longest time. We did get some development with Tommy, and some...
Okay, can we all admit that this is a show for kids? Like, it's designed for kids, like it's supposed to be a certain way, so you can do stuff like this, like just colorful characters jumping around, having fun fights. Isn't that the point of the show? We're not expecting like some crazy character arc where they go on a self journey of discovery and passion and romance. Like, no, they're just jumping around in giant machines, hitting giant creatures with plastic swords.
Insight into his character in Dino Thunder, but his personality didn't change all that much either since he was in a mentor role. Another issue with Tommy is that he's kind of like Batman, where the franchise seems to worship him, almost as if Tommy is the only one that matters. In a lot of major stories, it seems as if everyone in every...
Sorry, does the franchise really, suck Batman's dick that much? I don't think it does. Because Batman has been defeated before. He has his ass kicked. He has constant clashes with the Joker, and the Joker often has the same level as him. Or at least it's lots of his villains. He gets captured, he gets his ass kicked. Again, he's often just very smart.
Yeah, and then we're talking about with Power Rangers, there's all sorts of freaks of the weeks or whatever new scheme by the bad guys. I don't know what the comic book is like. I don't know what the movies are like. I can't really comment on this. But I'm quite sure these are designed for kids. They're not supposed to be heroes' journeys. Now, they could be. That could be totally cool. I just don't know. But we're trying to understand something which is supposed to be understood by 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, I guess. So what are these characters supposed to be? And he even himself admitted that they're pretty. There's a pretty low bar for these Power Rangers characters to be even considered characters. I don't even know. So can't say. I did see the adult version though. Of was it a fan trailer or a fan something? Was it a movie?
Is the one where they get shot and everything? There's blood.
It's violent. It's pretty violent and it's cool. But
I think I've seen that too. I think it's a fan movie. I think.
Yeah,
and it was good. It was good. I liked it.
Yeah, they got Tommy and all that crap. But yeah, that's what interests me. But in terms of storytelling, I don't think Power Rangers is going to win any awards. I don't think
it's known for its cheesy effects and storytelling. That's why people love it. People like the cheesy acting. People love the cheesy storytelling, all that stuff. That's what makes it great. It's kind of like when I watch a kung fu movie, I want the bad dubbing. I want I want them to be moving their mouths when they're not even and I want them to be talking when they're not even moving their mouths. I want that stuff.
Everything is bending over backwards for Tommy at the expense of the story and everyone else's development. Seriously, we can't have other people shine without Tommy being in the same room. Most evident in the Super Ninja Steel Power Rangers Anniversary Special. Tommy is talked up as a legend like always. It's Tommy whose help they need in order to defeat Lord Draven for some reason. It's Tommy who gets the super cool legendary morpher. And it's Tommy who delivers the finishing blow. Despite other veteran Rangers like Jem, Koda, and Wes appearing, they're eclipsed by Tommy. Now, for those of you in the audience who are itching to use the term Mary Sue and try to defend its existence and the usage of the word...
I'm not exactly seeing the problem. Again, I have to watch the show to know what the heck's going on. But
yeah, what he needs to do is put forth examples of Tommy, of the other Power Rangers losing to an enemy, and then Tommy coming in by himself and defeating that same enemy for no reason at all.
I don't watch Power Rangers. I've never watched Power Rangers, so I can't exactly talk about Power Rangers.
Maybe it sounds like he's on the scale if he has all these abilities, but are his abilities explained? If they are, then no, he's not.
Because he didn't describe an instance where Tommy specifically breaks the rules of continuity and established lore just for his own end.
This guy is called like so many random characters, Mary Sue. So at this point, I would doubt that. I wouldn't really trust this guy of what he's saying about a certain character.
Oh no, probably not. Well, I mean, to be fair, the Green Ranger, Tommy the Green Ranger, he was kind of on the trail, but the Green Ranger, when he was the Green Ranger, he was pretty weak. He kind of got defeated quite a bit when he was on the Power Rangers team. He started off evil, and he was almost unstoppable. Then he became good, kind of became weak after that, and kind of died, then became the White Ranger. It was, and he got special stuff. He got a sword. He got like special Zords and stuff. And he was kind of on that road, but he never actually hit Mary Sue status because he lost and he failed, he struggled, all that good stuff. He was kind of considered part of the team.
I guess we have to look at genre work itself as its own category. You probably can't apply like Deus Ex Machinas happen every day. There's some guy that jumps in and saves the day, whether that's in manga or anime or kids shows. So there are certain things that happen in these stories that
absolutely,
they're just part and parcel. So it's like, okay, well, they're going to use another magical ability we never saw before, like with Sailor Moon and her iterations over the seasons. She now can summon things. She now can teleport to the moon. She can now have different transformations or whatever the budget for that year is. So yeah, there's definitely some fantasy that comes out of nowhere, and
Tommy actually in the lore of Power Rangers, Tommy kind of became the most popular by fan popularity, and so he kind of took over the show. He kind of became the main character of Power Rangers, the original series anyway. And of course, as the main character, he would get some special toys and some special treatment. But he didn't. But what Julz Chen didn't do was provide examples, at least not yet, of Tommy breaking continuity, like Ray broke continuity, like Ray broke the rules of the Force. We didn't see Tommy break any rules of Power Rangers yet. At least he didn't give us examples of it. So
you don't understand. You don't need training to use Force abilities if you're going by make stuff logic.
Yeah, you can just steal them from someone's brain.
Well, he said it was all based off emotion and not actually any kind of training or practice.
Just got a super chat from HK47 for life. That's a great name. If Tommy earned the legendary status, okay, then it doesn't matter either. Luke was considered a legendary character, and he wasn't a Mary Sue. Yeah, I don't know exactly what he's getting at. The problem is he hasn't defined what a Mary Sue is. So if you haven't even done that, how can you argue either way for whatever you're trying to say? This is kind of...
I'm not even sure he said it yet, or he's about to say it, but he says that because people in later series where Tommy shows up, because they give him deference and treat him like a legend, and they give him all kinds of respect, therefore he's a Mary Sue. There's a difference between someone who just is loved instantly and someone who we've seen earn respect. And even if we didn't have that, just like Yoda, we can kind of gather that he's earned respect due to his age. But in the case of Tommy, we've seen his journey. We've seen him develop and grow. We've seen him take on threat after threat after threat and overcome conflict after conflict. So by the time we see him in the later series, yeah, he has already established himself as a legend. You've seen it. He's done it through his own actions. So when he's loved by all these, by the good guys and the Power Rangers, it's not just freely given. He's earned it. His reputation precedes him. And we've seen why that is.
I'm so glad someone on the stream knows anything about Power Rangers. So thank you. I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about. I was like, okay.
Here's the thing. All of that is not a problem with Tommy or his character. Same goes with characters like Batman or Wolverine. It's not an issue with their characters, it's an issue with the story and the priorities and skills of the writers. The writers are kissing Tommy's boots at the expense of everyone and everything else. Andros does not get any...
Okay, see what I mean? We need to have examples as to how the writer's favoritism towards Tommy is being detrimental to the story. Because let's pretend I haven't seen Power Rangers. I need to know. I need instances and examples, okay? Maybe we haven't seen Power Rangers. Give me instances and examples specifically where the story suffered, and tell me why the story suffered. Tell me how it suffered. Tell me how it could have been better, or what could have been different to make it better, but wasn't because Tommy was involved.
So are we planning to get to 15 minutes and then leave the other 25, also the other 50?
If you like,
Maybe 10 minutes.
I think
you have 10 minutes for a different.
Yeah, I think we could. If you guys want to do a second part, but he's
maybe other people will be able to join in then, like Evan and Southpaw.
I think it might be a good idea because I got to here before I stopped. So if the rest of this video is like the first 9 minutes, we might need to do part 2.
Yeah, just to say, he's comparing Tommy to Batman and Wolverine, the two most popular characters in their respective companies. I don't think they've ever called Wolverine a Mary Sue. Maybe Batman once or twice, but not very strongly. Because Batman's a guy who has a lot of money.
He'd be called a Gary too. Oh, no, I thought you like referring to the name. Okay.
Right. But it's just like first define the term, then give examples, then compare the examples if you're going to compare them at all. Just don't randomly choose characters that are popular and go, oh, these aren't Mary Sues. It's like, okay.
The thing is, like when it comes to Batman especially, I think we've mentioned why the characters aren't Mary Sues over and over again. But there's one episode in particular of Justice League, the animated series way back, where there's an episode where Batman has to kind of struggle with the fact that he is just a man fighting along all these superheroes. Like he ends up trying to do it on his own, and he ends up getting captured because of it. So the story doesn't bend over backwards for him. It actually punishes him for trying to do it by himself when he should be working with others. That's the episode where Joker comes in and all that, and Lex Luthor makes this Legion of...
All right, okay.
Anywhere near this level of worship despite, saving the frickin' universe. The criticism of Tommy Oliver doesn't mean Tommy himself is a bad character, or that we shouldn't ever have veterans like him return, or that he should never return, because it's cool to see him again. I'm saying, don't write a story that you might as well call The Tommy Oliver Show featuring...
That sounds more like it's a problem with the actual story itself, and not the character, like the characters in the original context. The problem is Ray is completely designed just as a Mary Sue, so if you added it in another story, it wouldn't everything would still be bending around her. And the original story of this person, I'm assuming they weren't a Gary Stu.
Essentially.
During the Power Rangers.
This is bending around him after the fact, not in his original.
It's not the character's fault or even any idea of a character, but rather whether or not it was implemented.
I just realized the yellow Ranger's Asian and the Black Ranger's black.
Oh.
Yeah, that's actually a running joke in Power Rangers. It's and they switched them up in later series, but that's a running joke. That the Black Ranger's black and the Yellow Ranger's
It just seems
Asian.
funny to me.
All these guys can kick your ass, just so you know. Like 20 years ago, whenever that show was on.
And they're all the goodiest of goody two shoes. They all help with all kind of charities and stuff like that. That's why everyone loved them. They were the paragons of humanity.
I'm wondering why all the males have the neck brace on and the women don't. What's going on there?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
Handled or executed well. It all depends on the skills and priorities of the writers, and any good writer can make any idea work. We've been writing.
And God, this music in the background doesn't stop.
First of all, Neil Gaiman is not a good writer. Neil Gaiman is a great writer. And yeah, you can make pretty much anything work, because if you make it work, it's written well, more than likely. But Mary Sue's don't work because they're always bad. They're always bad characters because they're badly written. That's why they're called Mary Sue's.
But anyway, this music just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And oh my
that's why I stopped using music in my videos. That's why I stopped.
At least, like, when I put music in, or when most people put music on, even some of the other videos we've watched have used different music at least. You know, even though we criticize it still, the music would still change from track to track to track. This one doesn't change. It just repeats and repeats and repeats over and over and over again.
I see your sensitivity to the music and not the content of the actual arguments are different.
We already know the arguments and the content is shit. We know the intro is shit. We know his little editing shit. We know everything about his argumentation and everything's shit already. But it's just the music's very irritating to me, especially if you have to listen to it over and over again.
Superman for 80 plus years.
Oh, that's sorry. Someone just mentioned it in the comments. Yes, it's the Slaughtering Grounds music. That was the Slaughtering Grounds was the original game, which it wasn't made by them. It was just it's famous for being used in that game, which was the game which Jim Sterling had a big row with.
Oh, all right.
Let's keep going.
If him being overpowered or a paragon was a problem for writers, we wouldn't have all these comics and all these wonderful classic stories, the good and the bad.
I think he bring this up. I'm not sure if he's arguing that this is true or not, but the thing is, people tend to mix up paragons with Mary Sue's. Paragons are different, and not Mary Sue's. Mary Sue's are Mary Sue's. Paragons are just righteous, morally upright people. Sort of like, Superman is a perfect example of paragon. They do tend to have flaws, even if they seemingly are perfect. They're not necessarily Mary Sue's. They're two different kinds of characters.
I remember when Ray had a flaw and she shot lightning out of her hands, and no one was angry. Everyone was just like, "Oh, well, it's Ray. It's Ray. It's fine.
It's okay. You might have accidentally killed Chewbacca. That's fine."
Yeah, everyone was sad about Chewbacca dying, but no one blamed her, which was insane.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Even the story's like, "Oh no, she didn't kill him." Haha.
He's alive about 5 minutes later or so. They reveal him to be alive.
Also,
can have Ray be wrong?
What was the point in Kylo trying to pull the ship back towards him and them having that tug of war? Because obviously we now know that there was no point in the troop transport because it was empty. And so what was the... fuck it. I'm trying to put logic to the Rise of Skywalker. That's when you know you're going down deep route.
In fact, it was because he had so many powers, was so powerful, was so high concept, and was applicable to most stories is how he survived the 50s and 60s when the popularity of superheroes began to wane.
No, that's not the reason why Superman was popular. That's like I want to read a comic about a guy who's really strong and he can fly and he's bulletproof. It's like no, it's what he represents. It's the symbolic meanings behind him that people love Superman. Why Americans bought comic books. While when things were tough in the 20s or the 30s, they were still being sold. These are very strange arguments to make. It's like, because he's strong, because he was a man, because he could fly. It's like, no.
I think he's essentially saying that because Superman had all the traits we would call a Mary Sue traits, and because he was essentially a Mary Sue, we loved him. And because he's not a woman, we loved him.
Maybe back in the day when he wasn't explained, but then they actually redefined his character to give him faults and personality and in a actual romantic story. Like there's more to him than that.
It's actually used against him often in lots of stories that he's unwilling to go certain lengths, or he's often referred to as the boy. Some villains don't take him seriously because they know he's not gonna harm them. He's just gonna throw them in jail.
In fact, when America was done fighting the Nazis, Captain America wasn't as relevant anymore, even when they tried to have him fight the Soviets, which is why his comic was put on ice. However, while characters like Tommy, Oliver, Captain America, Superman, and Batman sometimes get labeled as Mary Sues, there's another more insidious problem with this term. I mentioned how the term started, used to decry female self-insert characters. Well, nowadays, it's used predominantly against female characters that people don't like for one reason or another. And yes, we're talking about this.
What if they are female insert characters? Isn't that what you just said?
Bringing up Wonder Woman, which is very well received as a movie and a character.
I haven't heard anyone call this particular Wonder Woman a Mary Sue.
No, we know where
As
the
anyone
powers
else?
come
The
from.
movie itself is like given high praise.
I brought this example up my other stream, but I didn't get here. But I brought this example up. Remember Atomic Blonde? She beat up all kinds of men. She was very confident. She was pretty much a female James Bond. But I have not heard anyone say that she's a Mary Sue. At least there was no huge uproar complaining that she was a Mary Sue. I think Steven Crowder did a little bit, but there was no huge uproar as far as I know. And she wasn't one. She was competent and a woman, but she wasn't a Mary Sue. So I would wish Julz Chan would explain that one.
If you've circled the internet, you've seen this term get thrown at characters like Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, and of course Rey from Star Wars. The fact that a lot of these lovely ladies have been given more.
Rey is a Mary Sue. I know that for a fact. Captain Marvel, I've heard from people who love Marvel movies that are not just wanted to enjoy a movie, and they said that Captain Marvel was portrayed as overpowered. I haven't seen the movie myself, but that's how they described it to me. So it looks like Captain Marvel might also be a Mary Sue. Wonder Woman, I don't think so. I've not heard that one.
More or less similar roles, story arcs, personalities, or even the same power sets as many other famous male characters. Wonder Woman is not only powerful, she's just as much of a paragon as Superman, probably more so since she's willing to compromise herself to save others, like that time she killed Maxwell Lord. Captain Marvel is a powerful soldier who has to come to terms with the fact that the people she's been working for were not the good guys after all.
The thing is, in the movie itself, she doesn't. The world still bends around her. So in the beginning, she's got this tutor, and his tutor says, "Oh, if you want to win, you have to stop being emotional." And she becomes emotional, and she uses the power to kick his ass. And then it's the same later. There's so many cases where the world just bends around her. So that's why we say she's a Mary Sue.
This is why I think Julz Chan did no research for in any of these to make his video, because it's not. If he compared why we like these male characters and we dislike these female characters, as he says, because even though they have similar or even the exact same skill set, he would find that he should have gone a little bit deeper and find out, why. What are the circumstances behind why we like certain characters and why we dislike certain characters, even though they have similar aspects to them. And he might find out that it's not about the powers. It's not about the strengths and abilities. It's about the circumstances around those strengths and abilities and how the characters and the characters around them and the plot and story and the writers treat the main character. Are they given the powers? Are they Does the plot just suddenly change everything up just so the good guy can win easily? What's going on? So it's the circumstances.
I kind of like that.
I kind of feel like we're going around in circles a little bit here, as we're constantly having to re-explain things for this guy who keeps bringing up. Yeah, we're having to re-explain a lot of things over and over again.
I like the fact that he actually screen capped him scrolling down the page for Mary Sue. I don't think he actually read the page. I think he just, turned his screen capture program on, moved his mouse wheel, and said, okay, I'm going to put that in my video.
To make you think I read it or something.
I guess, because I don't think he absorbed anything on that page.
And they were in fact manipulators and liars, kind of like Captain America when S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed due to Hydra. Their development came in a change of wisdom, of perception.
The thing is, with Captain America and Hydra, that was explained, and people accept that explanation, but there's so many flaws with, for one, why they would accept Captain Marvel. Why is she in their ranks? Why, if they're so fearful of her, why have they accepted her? And the kind of backstory they've kind of told her is like, oh, we've given you these powers, and then no one else has these powers. And it's not exactly a surprise to us that she works for the bad guys, and it has quite literally no impact on her character that she's working for the bad guys this entire time. However, when it comes to Captain America, it has a lot more impact on his character that he's now working against S.H.I.E.L.D., who he used to be employed by. And there's even lots, like, he wants to... It even got dynamics where he disagrees with Director Fury, because Nick Fury wants to keep the carriers and keep S.H.I.E.L.D. alive, while Captain America doesn't anymore.
I think Captain Marvel and Rey are very much quote-unquote heroes that are products of an era where certain people are expected to be given applause for simply existing. Like, all of a sudden you're great for just being alive, or just existing at all.
Of who they could trust and who they should ally with. Rey comes from a humble beginning like Luke. She's force sensitive, she saves a droid, gets caught in a war, teams up with Han and Chewie, fights an edgelord.
The problem, it's all very convenient, and we've gone over this to fucking death.
Julz Chen is very good. Julz Chen is very good and very consistent in leaving out tons and tons of context.
You just skipped over the points that make her a Mary Sue. We'll just skip over those.
Oh yeah, she's in a war, she finds a droid, she finds a thing. It's like, yes, but the circumstances, like, oh, the droid happens to stumble in her life, then Finn happens to stumble into her life, then this happens to happen, then that happens to happen, then they happen to find the Millennium Falcon, then they happen to find Han Solo, and then they happen to find Luke's lightsaber, and at the same time the thing happens, and then they happen to have the person who used to clean Starkiller Base, and then, it's a mess.
Joins the rebellion and helps blow up a doomsday weapon. I don't know, guys, maybe it's your lack of imagination, maybe it's your suspense of disbelief being so frail, but you're telling me you can believe a simple farm boy with little to no experience fighting an evil empire, taking out the Death Star, and yet a scavenger girl who picks apart spaceships for a living, and who develops some tech skills over time.
Yeah, but the only explanation we have of tech skills is she rips something out of a wall.
Yeah, it's really easy to break things, okay? It's a lot easier to break things than it is to fix them.
Again, a fuel compressor. So she says there's a fuel compressor in fuel pump 1, or something like that, or fuel tank 1, and then to fix that, she rips it out, a little circuit out of the wall, and says, I bypassed the compressor.
That's not what bypass. If anyone knows anything about electrical engineering, bypassing does not involve ripping out a circuit. Okay, that would be removing the circuit. Okay,
I ripped out the bypass.
Doesn't in circuitry it requires a loop. So if you just break that loop, doesn't it just stop everything from working? That's not bypassing.
Now, when Rey does it,
you'd have a series of transistors or capacitors, and then you'd have to remove that loop and create another one. So you actually bypass it with another wire or another circuit. She literally just removes it from the wall.
Tech skill, and never explained or never even shown again. Well, you could say she's maybe got tech skills from scavenging, but scavenging and tech skills are very different things.
It's never shown.
You can have someone.
Tech skills.
breaking up. It's because it's very easy to break things and take them apart than to build them. You could have someone who's been, deconstructing ships for years, but they wouldn't be able to design and build a ship because they're different.
Let's actually keep going. That plot points are not character traits. You can mirror up Luke and Ray as much as you want. It's not going to make a difference if you don't know the context behind what's going on.
But if he adds in context, how is he supposed to make his argument? Because it just all falls apart there.
Details. What are those?
That's I think it's his argumentation style. Is leaving out all the context.
It's the same story, guys.
Same thing.
Uses those tech skills to repair and pilot the Millennium Falcon. By the way, the Millennium Falcon.
But she's never, as far as we can tell, she's never flown a thing in her life. And when she tries to say why she knows how to fly, she says, "I don't know."
I've flown ships, but I've never left the planet. You're like,
And she's
really?
the planet.
Really?
Well, no,
Which
she's-
ships?
But
No,
I
no,
don't remember
when?
If they showed her in the movie working on the Millennium Falcon and giving upkeep, then everything would have been solved. They didn't do that though. They just showed her ripping out some components.
Any line saying that she used to fly ships but never left the planet. I just remember the line where she says, "I don't know," after being explained, after asking, how did you do?
Yeah, that's
I
the
don't
same
know.
scene. It's the same scene. She says it while Finn is talking to her, so they're kind of excited. So it's kind of hard to pick up. But it's like, oh, so she did fly ships. Which ships were they? Like exactly like this one? Because if they were, then maybe we can believe you. But if they're not, then it's like comparing I don't know, any jet engine to a World War II plane. Like it's like, what do you?
She says you fly ships, but she's never seen owning any kind of ship. So what ships would she have
I don't
flown?
know. This makes no sense. How could she? Why would she ever have the opportunity to fly ships when
I get
she's
a
a
distinct
scavenger?
I get the distinct feeling that they added that. They had that scene with no explanation, and then someone said, how come she knows how to fly ships?" And so they just added in that line afterwards just to hopefully explain something.
In the books, they explain that she had a flight simulator in the AT-AT
Y-wing.
that she lives in.
From a Y-wing.
From a screensaver.
Oh yeah.
And that's how she learned all of her languages, and that's how she knows it.
Because in her house for about 2 seconds, the camera focused on a screen, and then some guy wrote in some book that, oh yeah, she was a training sim.
I love how, when someone was designing, the Y-Wing in the Clone Wars, it's like, okay, we need a bomber, and the thing we really need in this bomber is to put languages in it. And that is one of the most important things to put in a military bombing vehicle, languages.
That's how she learned it. No. It wasn't that she learned languages. Is that it had binary in it, which is like saying, "Hey, you could learn binary because you own a computer." It's like, no, it's not. It's not even.
Also, I guess the closest thing you'd get to maybe is language options, but having language options, you need some kind of point of reference when you're learning a new language.
But that's
you need to be told that this word means that word.
You can't learn English from binary. You can't learn anything other language from binary. It makes no sense.
The display would be in a language, and if you just change the display to a different language, you're not going to know what it is. If I change my computer to German right now, I'm not going to learn German. I'll be very confused about what the fuck is going on.
Come on, obviously the Y-Wing computer had Rosetta Stone in there. Okay,
I don't know. It's got learning software in it. Again, but that explains that. Okay, what we need in this Y-Wing is learning software, so people can learn language.
Tyler Preston says Amuro Ray may be the pilot of a Gundam, but doesn't mean he can fix it. And he's the one from the original Gundam series. And Amuro Ray was a new type, which is pretty much like I guess you can equate them to Jedi a little bit, because they're like special people that have unique skills, uniquely. They're very talented at flying. They have height and reflexes, all that stuff. The thing is, where Ray didn't have an equal, she could just beat everyone. Amuro Ray had a distinct rival in Shar Aznable, if I remember correctly. And he was also a new type, and he was better than Amuro. Amuro could challenge him, but he had a distinct rival who beat him and who can outmaneuver him. Ray didn't have that.
Anyway, we've explained this like a billion times before, so I think we can probably continue with the video and finally get it over with.
Let's see what else.
And then next time we can have Southpaw and Evan on. Hope.
Let's see what other arguments he just rehashes.
has been out of Han's possession for a long time now, becoming force sensitive, clearly getting used to her powers, and just barely held her own against a wounded edgelord, not killing him by the way.
Barely held her own.
What do you mean barely held her own? She kicked his fucking ass.
Oh, you disingenuous person. Oh, no. She beat him. We mean barely held her own. She got pushed back a little bit, closed her eyes, opened them again, and then defeated him easily. And almost killed him.
Wasn't there a similar argument made before, like trying to disingenuize like that Rey, you know, got beaten badly or something like that? She like saying she or something along those lines.
Well, that was Vosh. Vosh was being a bit strange because he's Vosh.
He pretty much saying that Kylo Ren was cut in half and his guts were hanging out. Like, no, it wasn't.
It's like he was hit the side of his, like, you know, the lung, like just where the lung ends on the left side of your body. That's where he got shot. It almost missed him. That's how
Kylo Ren was fine.
Yeah, okay. And the ground split apart just so Kylo didn't die. God, come down.
That is a Deus Ex Machina trying to save a person from a Mary Sue.
Not only that movie had Mary Sue.
The two worst things you can do in a movie or a story combined.
Checked off all the terrible things you shouldn't do.
You just what? Like, wow.
If Julz Chan's argument had in any of the context of the movies, his argument just shattered to pieces. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah, I've referenced like this so many times in arguments, like, oh, Rey beat Kylo in the first, and it's very befuddling to me how people deny this when it's something you can watch the movie and it's right there.
Held her own is too much for your fragile suspense of disbelief.
Okay, see what I mean? See what I mean about the arrogance and how it's not
even.
It's not just
she shouldn't even be struggling. She should be dead.
Yeah,
she has no training.
Kylo Ren is supposed to be apparently part of the other dyad of the Force or whatever. He should be just strong, naturally talented as she is, except he had training. He should have won. And second of all, remember, see what I mean about this arrogance that they have? This is what I mean. What I mentioned at the beginning of this stream is that he's not just listing out points X, Y, and Z. Here's why you're mistaken about the Mary Sue or whatever. It's here's X, Y, and Z. If you don't agree with me, your sense of disbelief is just too fragile and you're too dumb and ignorant to grasp the truth that I, the all-knowing Julz Chan, am just deciding to bless you with. Same arrogance.
It's like a child, just think. Isn't like a child? Is that the meme where it's like really fat guy? Or am I thinking of something else? Or it was like Chan. Oh, fuck it. They're too similar.
Some fat guy. What are you talking about?
I remember this being that's like difference between Chad and Chan or something like that. Like where one's like really awesome and the other one's just like the worst.
I'm gonna
drop that because I can't remember.
There's a video I did obviously with Vosh. I finally finished. I'm gonna take that one part where Vosh is like, "Yeah, of course Kylo won," and I'll show the exact scene. I'll just speed it up because it's so long. Kylo gets 0 hits. And then here's Rey losing. He just like scores like 5 hits on Kylo nearly kills him. That's all you gotta do. Just watch the movie.
You guys are so freaking weird. And yes, you can have sexist tendencies while not believing yourself to be sexist. Just
what? So we're sexist now.
Not only you're wrong, you're sexist. Okay, just because it can't have doesn't have any other argumentation.
So just because, he said that just because we don't have sexist tendencies doesn't mean that we're not sexist.
It's because we don't believe we're sexist. Doesn't mean we're not sexist. Because if we think these Reys and Mary Sue, obviously we're sexist, and it's not because of reasons we've listed over and over and over and over and over again.
Despite the fact
because we all hate women. That's apparently the real reason.
Throwing that out there, you guys. Chances are it's because guys like that feel like they can't project themselves.
That's also wrong. Also, Janeway was awful.
She was miles better than Rey, though.
Yeah, I watch her before. Janeway
I don't actually. My problem with Janeway stems more from the writing. Again, as I keep referencing Equinox, where she's always like sticking to the Prime Directive, like to the point where it's just insane. It's like, oh, you killed some aliens to survive. Well, that makes you evil. And that's my main problem with Janeway. But the actress and the way she's being played a lot of the time, when it's not horrible writing, is actually fine to me.
She has a few lapses in judgment, let's just say, throughout the series.
And the Borg become weak so that she can win.
Yeah, they neuter the Borg in various ways.
I think that the Borg become
Voyager.
kind of ineffectual when it comes to Janeway.
The thing is, Voyager managed to withstand not just a cube, not just a Borg cube, a tactical Borg cube that has armor and insane weapons, which is far beyond. So in First Contact, you have the cube and it's destroying this entire fleet, whereas this one ship Voyager can not die instantly against it.
And if you like what they did with the Borg and Voyager, wait till you watch the latest episode of Picard. Oh, that was fantastic.
Also, I'm surprised he's not arguing that we could call Sisko a Mary Sue because he punched out what the closest thing to a literal god in DS9.
But he didn't harm him, though. He just punched him.
Yeah, he's
in a match what Q wanted. Well, they didn't want him to punch him
because he could argue that, but if you add in the context, it would fall apart like the rest of his arguments.
Because he doesn't actually hurt Q. He just punches him because he wants him to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and then Q never came back to DS9.
I think that was more because the episode was bad. I honestly think having Q in DS9 would have been amazing, just because it would be a great way to. So you have Q, which is he's it's so powerful he can do things just by snapping his fingers, and then you have the Prophets.
Yeah,
it would be a great dynamic to have two demigods, also two godlike powers, the Prophets and the Q, to have this. Dynamic. It would be pretty sweet to see, but we didn't get Q again. He said he just buggered off to Voyager and started harassing Janeway.
Also, Sisko was a chosen one and a prophet. I mean, he's the son of a prophet, and he's the emissary to the Bajoran gods. He's all kinds of things.
That doesn't really give him any powers, though.
No, it gives him respect. That's about it. But I mean, you could argue that gives him Mary Sue status, but when you add in the context, it falls apart again.
Yeah, because when it comes to the Bajorans, there's often times where there's he has conflicts with Bajorans. I'm trying to remember who were the Kai. Yeah, the Kai constantly had butting heads with him, and when he ended up breaking an icon, the Bajorans were still pretty pissed. They didn't just let him get away with that.
Girl, therefore they think it's bad, but they'll gladly see themselves or project themselves or worship Han Solo back.
I don't see myself in Picard or Solo. I don't see myself in Batman, especially as my parents are not dead.
You can respect a character without imagining that you're them or anything. I mean, kids pretend that kids emulate and pretend that they're these characters, but just because you can't see yourself as them or project yourselves into them doesn't mean you can't respect them and like them and be fans of them
or enjoy them.
Yeah, you want to respect the villains, what they're doing, even though it's crazy or violent or bad.
The way I describe characters is somewhat similar to Smud Boy, when you mentioned a character's attractability is often how you say they're a good character or bad. There's certain things which can attract you to them, and that can either be physical attractiveness, or it can be relatability, or it can be something like mystery. Like Garak has a great air of mystery around him, or moral ambiguity or moral duality. And there's lots of things that can add to this, and it doesn't have to be that you can see yourself in a character. That relatability aspect is often just a very easy way for the writer to make you enjoy this character and for them to be more attractive to you personally.
Yeah, and usually that is not in service of the rest of the story. It's just to flesh out that character within the setting more so that they're more believable, which is the ultimate point, really. So
yeah, you can enjoy a character which you don't see yourself in. Yeah. I don't see myself in Batman, and he's my favorite superhero. I don't see myself in Ahsoka or Captain Rex, but yet that's some of my favorite Star Wars characters. Or even
the best example I can think of that is 7 of 9, when they introduced her character. She's a great character, not because she's a tall, blonde woman. It's because she's actually has humanity, and she's trying to find it. And she's
a character arc.
She's going through the paces. That's why we care. She could have been the actress Esri Dax, and a short little lady. that could have played Seven of Nine. Would have had the same impact. That's
Same
fun.
thing.
Yeah. So
Seven Nine was great. She had a lot of characters. She kind of saved the show, in my opinion.
yeah.
Though it was kind of annoying that sometimes she would unlearn a certain lesson about humanity in another.
Yeah.
Like she would learn it and then
that's
she'd
why-
forget it at the end of the.
That's why Voyager's kind of terrible, because it's famous for its reset button. If you go to the next episode from the previous episode, you can pretty much bet that everything from the previous episode has been forgotten.
Yeah,
It
I
never
think
happened.
that the show could have been massively improved by having elements that return rather than having the reset button, because they were very stuck on the idea that I think Deep Space Nine was definitely thinking ahead of its time when it had the to continue a story over each episode and have the development follow through. But the worry was, and the reason why it became less. The worry was warranted because Deep Space Nine was less accessible to everyone, because if in those days you would have just turned on the TV and whatever episode was airing at the time would be what you've been exposed to. You wouldn't necessarily watch All in Order, so that you drop right into an episode and no one knows where they are because they haven't watched any others. But with Voyager, the reason why that was more popular than Deep Space Nine, was because anyone could just drop in any episode and they could just enjoy it. But unfortunately, that's kind of aged the show overall.
Yeah, pretty much. But if Julz Chen is arguing that people calling these characters Mary Sue's because they can't, because they don't like them, because they're men, because they're women and not men or whatever, and they can't project themselves on it, then that would be disingenuous, and he's in the right to call them out on that stuff. But if he's just saying that if he's making a straw man, which might be the case, I'm just guessing, that we hate all these female characters because they're just women and competent at the same time, then that's wrong. That's not why people call, in general, why these people call these characters Mary Sue's, and why we love Batman but hate Ray. It's not the reason at all.
Or else you wouldn't have women or girls liking the character of Luke or being unable to identify with him. So
I remember one specific. It's not more specific. See if I can remember it quickly. There was someone who I did a commission for a couple of years back, and it was a channel of this guy and his daughter, and they pretty much just talked about Star Wars a lot. And he talked to his daughter, and he asked her, so do you enjoy the character of Luke? And she said, yeah. And she talked about why she really loved Luke. And then this very, very little girl, I don't know her age specifically. And then he asked, how do you think about Rey? And she says, oh, I don't really enjoy her that much. I prefer Luke. And yeah, so that's the kind of proof that, well, it's not, definite proof, but it's just something to show that little girls can, enjoy Luke over Rey.
okay.
I know that Star Wars girl. That's her story also. She liked Luke. She fell in love with Star Wars because she loved the journey of Luke Skywalker. She saw herself in Luke Skywalker.
All right, guys, we've been going on for almost 3 hours. We're about 30 seconds, so that's more than halfway.
Yeah.
I think we could stop right now. I think we can get another second stream going either tomorrow or next week. What do you guys think?
I think so too. That'll work.
Yeah, all right. That'll be fine. Maybe try and coordinate it more with Evan and Southpaw. Hopefully, they'll be able to get on.
Oh yeah, I mean,
It seems like Southpaw's always working.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to, get him on just because he hasn't been on in a while. I just want to make sure his schedule's okay and we can accommodate him next time. But yeah, I think this is a good time to stop. We'll continue in part 2 whenever we can next week or the week after. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all the super chats. We appreciate that. All the little references. Good stuff as always. And again, if you have any other ideas or suggestions about the stream, about videos to cover, please leave them in the comments below or on Discord or on Twitter. I appreciate it. Thank you for everyone for listening and have yourself a great evening.
See ya.